Hey everybody, it's Alex, and on today's episode of the YaBonks Show, I have a very special guest with me today. I have John Lim from KERC, and KERC connects primary and alternative healthcare and cryptocurrency technology industries. They acquire and transform traditional brick-and-mortar primary care businesses into turnkey tech-driven crypto assets and allow investors of any capital size to access earnings in stablecoins directly from KERC's investments into traditional healthcare businesses. And this is a very interesting crossover between DeFi and traditional business. Do you want to say hi to the audience, John, and give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is John, as you can hear from Alex. I'm big crypto geek in a sense, like all of you guys. And I think everyone's just tired of getting rugged or this project's not doing well. So this is the whole birthplace of this project and how it came about in a sense. A win finally for all of us.
Very cool. And so with KERC, do you want to give me a short elevator pitch and a high-level overview of your business?
Yeah, for sure. So KERC is a project brought to life by the concept of what I was already doing in the traditional market. So in the whole traditional market, I come from a healthcare background. And in the healthcare background, we basically sort of have a high barrier of entry when it comes to any investments or any startup costs in that sense, because you have a lot of the legal issues that you need to face and deal with. You have the logistical issues because there's a lot of moving parts to a healthcare business. And obviously, lastly, it's a high upfront cost as a whole. So because of that, we have turned a proven track record business that we have sort of done in the traditional mindset. And me being a whole DeFi and Web3 fan myself, I've realized that there's definitely a space in the market to sort of merge the two together. And this is where the whole idea of the potential of where traditional business can finally meet crypto in that sense. And it comes from also a place where healthcare is definitely in a space ripe for disruption. And DeFi is definitely an exit in terms of how we utilize smart contracts, how we utilize the whole tokenomics of systems. And this is a business that definitely is sustainable and Ponzonomics free. So that would be a simple overview in terms of what we are doing here.
Awesome. And I love interviewing real world businesses that cross over into the DeFi space. So as you said, this is not just a DeFi project, but this is a business in the real world that is creating DeFi technology to enhance and bring up the business's technology into the modern age of finance. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you even safe to say that you can consider sort of like health finance tech in that sense.
Absolutely. And I actually used to work in that and early in my career as a software engineer. As I told you in some of our calls, I used to write software for some of the hospital systems in the United States. And I wrote a lot of their point of sale systems, and they were always like 10 years behind. And if they're still using my software, like that's 10 years behind now. I hope they've upgraded it since then. And I know they're kind of slower moving on that, even if they have incredible biomedical technology that's cutting edge. Yeah. Many times the administrative and technical, like IT side of things, lag a bit behind for whatever reason that is. So it's interesting that you're merging DeFi with healthcare.
I can definitely tell you the main reason why there's a lag behind is mostly because of doctors. It's just easier to do things the way they know how to, especially when they already have so much things on their mind. So when you want to introduce a new system to them, you need to sort of like ease them into it and create a system where it doesn't disrupt their method and their model of working. So that's what we also plan to do down the road as well, for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, before we really dive into things, do you have any news or announcements you want to share with the audience before we start exploring the finer details of KERC?
Yeah, so KERC is currently on its very early stages right now. We will be having our official pre-sale in the middle of the June, towards the end of the June. Dates will be announced. But what we do have right now up is our white paper and our Discord. The website will be also up shortly, soon up, and you can basically see everything up there. We also just send our contracts in. We two of our contracts and one of our tokenomic contracts in for audit. We are doing it with solid proof, and also we'll be doing our KYC with them. So all three founders are going to be fully doxed towards them. I'm fully doxed as well at this time moment. So. Yeah. That's the alpha. And one last thing before I forget, we do have a sort of a seed sale going on right now with a partner that we've partnered with, DH Fund. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but if you do, go give them a shout out. We've gracefully sort of like merged together with them in terms of how we see investments and how we see DeFi as a whole. So we both really believe in long-term sustainability and long-term rewards to the users, rather than just a short moon and then you die at the end of the day. So we're sort of doing a little pre-seed sale for them. It will be going at a special rate. So just drop in now the Discord and then you'll find out the sale. And this will close by the middle of June.
Well, that is awesome. So if you're catching this video early on, you might have a chance to get in as a private seed investor for the next 2 weeks or so till the middle of June. And then after that, you said you're going to do your pre-sale and then public sale after that. So this is quite early on this launch. Also, DHedge, dhedge.fund is a project that I have interviewed already. And if you go back in my AMAs, I did a great AMA with Bevan, the founder of DHedge, just a couple weeks ago. And that was a really great interview, in my opinion. So that's really cool that you guys have kind of teamed up to collaborate and you're doing a private round for their community.
Yeah. And it's open to your community as well, Alex.
Hey, that's amazing. So I will put it out there. I know you said this is going for another 2 weeks. So by the time I publish this, it might be another couple days. We'll see how the community responds, because that's cool. A lot of times people find out about new DeFi projects well after the public launch and everything like that. And obviously there's always risks the earlier you invest in any venture. And that's why the risk reward ratio is skewed more. If you're an early angel or seed investor, you have a higher reward should the venture succeed. And that's why pre-sales have is like a middle kind of ground, and public launch, like it's kind of fair ground at that point. And, because a lot of that risk is taken away as things have been developed more. So really cool to have the opportunity. Now, is this a proven business model already, or are you just kind of diving into this blindly? Okay, because this is a big thing. Like healthcare, brick-and-mortar healthcare is, like you said, not easy to get into. So with all that being said, like you got this private sale. Is this to kickstart a brand new healthcare management company, or is this to scale something that already exists?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So what we've actually built in terms of my companies is that we've created a turnkey system for healthcare. We have experience with healthcare under our assets. We do manage a lot of primary care clinics. So the primary goal here is to create a system whereby instead of us profiting off ourselves and doing a slow growth, like what we were speaking with Alex earlier on, is we're sort of like pouring gasoline to the fire now to basically explode this whole project as a whole. So in terms of healthcare assets, normally you sort of take about 1 year in terms to basically ROI, which is quite a sexy point that we go into later. And if we grow on scale, this will sort of kickstart this whole journey to grow faster in terms of this as a traditional methodology of how we would raise. So going into healthcare, we already have quite a bit of scar tissue under our belt, so we know what works and what doesn't work in terms of handling primary care assets. So this would be not a new idea in that sense. This would be a proven business that we have done before. And right now we are basically bringing it and bridging it into the crypto space to sort of jumpstart and kickstart this whole project.
Awesome. So as you guys just heard, this is a proven business model. They've been running for a while. They have multiple companies that do primary care facility management and acquisitions. And how many facilities do you currently have in your other businesses under management currently, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so currently we manage around 40 assets under management. We don't
40? 40?
Yeah, 40.
Wow.
Yes, 40. So we don't directly own them. What we do is basically we sort of manage their assets and we basically collect a management fee. So we do have the turnkey system to basically manage more clinics under our own assets. We do have the team for that and we do have the experience for that. And personally, under our own asset company, we have about 9 under our belt. These are assets that we own privately. But we, just to jump ahead of any of the questions, is that we will not be mixing them in a sense directly, because what we believe is that we want to create a whole new segment for the crypto side to basically jumpstart this segment.
Okay. So your other companies, they own 9 facilities outright that you manage, and then you're managing 40 other facilities owned by other people, and you're taking a management fee from those. So you've got this very large healthcare facility management company and portfolio growing. Now you're launching a separate similar business here with a lot of the same skills, teams, and resources, but also giving it the DeFi crowdfunding ability to really be able to freely pour gasoline on successful business models to then help you scale your portfolio quicker than would otherwise be possible in a traditional sense of, using your revenue and profits, rolling them into more assets. I understand, like in real estate portfolios, a lot of people take out loans and mortgages and leverage debt to scale their portfolios quickly to bootstrap high cash flow amounts that they can then, own those assets quicker. And then all of a sudden, after 5 or 10 years, they've got a massive portfolio, millions of dollars of capital, and they've basically, it's like you leapfrog a little bit ahead using finance. Yeah. Is that an accurate kind of depiction of what's going on here with your healthcare brick and mortar facility business acquisition and transformation business and management with the DeFi crowdfunding space?
Yeah, you definitely couldn't have said it any better in that sense, because when we come to the whole traditional component in terms of healthcare, assets are really expensive, as I said before, to sort of jumpstart. And in this season, where the times are a bit tough overall, and we definitely, like, if the question does come out of have we approached PEs and private investors and stuff like that, we have. We've weighed our choices, and what we've realized is that they are going to take a very big fee and a big chunk at the end of the day in terms of this whole things. And I think coming from the DeFi position and a person who's involved in many projects, I think it's time we let the little guys win. And I think DeFi is a place where a lot of magic can happen for sure. So in the times where the PEs and the healthcare asset companies or banks who are giving out loans, in that sense, they're being a bit more conservative and they want basically a bigger risk portfolio of what we are going to build. We basically said, hey, screw that. Why not we bring this to the community? Let's basically give them the opportunity to jumpstart and jump into this rocket ship with us to see let's see how far we can go. And the next point is that because times are tough in this season, healthcare assets are on discounts. Because what we're looking at is mostly primary healthcare assets, and these are normally owned by either older doctors or people who are basically not very well versed into the primary healthcare market. So what traditionally happens is that right after this pandemic, things have been a bit tough on everyone. So it's right now, if you want to strike and you want to get cheaper assets, it's no better time in that sense. So that's why we decided, hey, look, instead of waiting on the traditional side, why not let's move towards DeFi and let's see how we can go from there.
Awesome. I love it. I think that's really cool to, stumble onto this opportunity as one of those little guys you speak about. That's why I love DeFi, by the way. It opens up doors I wouldn't have access to otherwise. And to, stumble into something like this so early on, where I've done my due diligence and learned all about your company and your project, and it's still private seed investor round, which for me, like, those opportunities are rare. Even as a YouTuber with a super fast growing channel that interviews businesses and entrepreneurs every week, it's, getting into those conversations with the right people at the right time, where it's like, hey, there's a new business starting and they're taking in private investors with, is there a minimum, by the way, for private investors? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, you need $50,000 minimum to buy into this. Is there anything like that?
No. So that's why we created the system. So there's no minimum for you to buy in.
Very cool. I like that. If I got $200 like disposable income this month, I might chuck it in here and be like, I own healthcare facilities. That's so all right. Now we can pontificate about this all day, as we have already for hours and hours today. I kind of want to jump straight into this so my audience knows what the value proposition is. So first off, from a purely numbers-based perspective, what value are you proposing to create for users in a conservative scenario, as well as from a wildly successful scenario? And then also, realistically, what do you think could be like a healthy middle ground that's realistic?
Yeah. So from our healthcare assets under management, we have, I would say, safely done an average of 30 to 40% return on investments every year. The benefit of healthcare is that most assets that we purchase are, I would say, in this time and season, severely undervalued. So before I jump into like the amount of returns, maybe I'll give you a little bit of backstory in terms of how the magic works. So healthcare assets, especially in Southeast Asia, that's where I'm from, it's currently very undervalued because there is no exit sort of for the primary care guys as in this time of season at the moment, because most primary care doctors are either doctors who own their own facilities. They are rarely owned by businessmen or businesses because they are not as sexy as hospitals per se. So it's little guys as well. And when they come to age, they basically either just close their assets, close shop, or they sell it to someone. And the only options to sell it to is either companies or younger doctors. And let's be real here, younger doctors are just coming out of college. They are in neck high in student loan debt because we all know studying medicine is not cheap. Yeah. So most doctors who just come out are not really interested in getting into primary care. Most of them were probably trying to shoot for a surgical level doctor position and other specialties that definitely pay more. So normally doctors who go into primary care are a different set. So they are a bit more older. So at that time and moment, they will sort of exit at a good price point, which they feel. And normally in traditional business, as I spoke to Alex before, we would sort of do like a 3 times a beta, or maybe in terms of like a 2 to 3 times in terms of your net revenue. What is the price you would normally sell your assets? But because of the position they're in, normally the decent running healthcare assets would only sell at about 1 times EBITDA or 1 times net profit. That means if you acquire them, yes, the money is not sexy in that sense. It's not like the millions of dollars. It's good money still. And you can ROI in 1 year. So now the question comes about in terms of like, how do we return this as a whole to the investors? So this is where the volume, the number of assets under management, and scalability comes into play. So in a good year, we definitely can convert a traditional running asset to return about 30 to 40% in terms of the asset value of what we purchased on a very conservative level with good retained earning values. On a very extreme side, we can, if it's a, I would say extreme side because we've been through COVID in that sense for handling some of these healthcare assets. And during the COVID time when healthcare was very in demand, sadly, even though the world was very much in pain, we saw some healthcare facilities do easily 60% in terms of returns in a year because of just the demand. I would say it's a two-pronged thing because the demand was mandatory, number one. So for example, like if you needed to get checked for COVID or if you needed to get swabbed or you needed medication and stuff like that, you have to go to a primary care facility. You can't go into a hospital because the hospital will just say, quarantine, don't even come here, full, it's bad. So that is where we see a very extreme situation, and I don't expect it to happen again. I don't think anyone wants something like that to happen again. No. Even though, returns are good, but it's not something the world wants in this time of season. That's the more extreme. But on the conservative side, a very conservative level, let's just say on times are average, or if it's a healthcare facility is a bit older and run down and a bit further out in the skirts in that sense, we can easily do about 20% to about 15% in terms of ROI a year. So this is where we need to sort of balance the assets that we purchase as a whole together. And that's why we can safely give about 1.5% fixed returns to our investors in this time and season, which we would start scaling up those assets as well. So as we scale out those assets, because a lot of these primary healthcare facilities are very traditional, like we mentioned before. So they are running on fumes. They're still using paper systems. They're still using traditional inventory systems. So when we come in, because of the scale of assets we have and technologies that we have, we are able to sort of optimize all their systems. So for example, when you buy medication in box, now because I have for example, 30 assets rather than just 10, I can basically get a better deal with the wholesalers and all the other consumables as well. So this is where we start optimizing the profits from the traditional side where they maybe already generate about, for example, 20 to 30%, I can maybe push them up to 40% in return of investments. Obviously, given that we cannot push all of that back to the investors, we do need to retain some earnings in case there's something broke, equipment broke, or something, I don't know, spoils. So we have to sort of, as a good business sense, we sort of do need to retain some earnings to fix all of that. And what we want to do is estimately pushed out about 80% of that retained earnings back to all the investors. So in a sense, you own healthcare facilities.
That's really interesting. So just to see if I understood that correctly, the value you're proposing to create for users in a conservative scenario, well, from a business perspective, a very conservative year, you'd be doing 15 to 20% ROI. On a wildly successful year, unfortunately, like the pandemic times, that was like 60% ROI. And then on average, you guys do between 30 and 40% ROI per year. And obviously you can kind of boost that with economies of scale, depending on how fast you scale your assets and do bulk orders and things like that. Now, and then you're saying 80% of that, of those business profits would be going back to the DeFi stakeholders here, participants, users, and 20% would be going back to the company and the business side stakeholders, specifically as retained earnings and things like that. Did I lay that out correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Like, guys, I just want to point it out that Alex has just a way of just concising my points. Like, he's just great at that.
Hey, thanks, man. I try to just reiterate what you say, so that way it really sticks in the viewer's head, so they'll remember it better. So like you say it once, and then I kind of repeat it again, and then hearing it twice, it usually sticks. Yeah.
But you do a really good job at that for sure.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's awesome. Those are fantastic numbers, even on your conservative end. S&P 500 does 10% gains per year on average over its entirety. So, even your conservative estimate of 15 to 20 is fantastic. 30 to 40 is what you've been doing for many years with your business model. That's incredible. And then in COVID times, you guys were seeing 60% ROI on some of your facilities. Those are really incredible numbers. Now, so that's the value that you guys create. Now, what is the main value proposition here? How do you actually create that value that users like me could get exposed to?
So I think the key thing right here is that, as we spoke earlier, healthcare is not a simple market to enter in a sense, even though it's very, very highly profitable. Most healthcare funds or banks or basically private equities or VCs, when they go into healthcare, they normally come in big, and they normally look for the big hospitals. They want the sexy money, basically. They want the millions, basically, because hospitals can generate that. It's not tough for them to do that. But in terms of primary care, it's definitely a very underlooked market in a sense within the whole wide world, I would say, because everyone needs primary care before you move into secondary or tertiary care in a sense. So the value that we are bringing is that we are letting the small guys have an opportunity to invest in a healthcare business. And basically, because you are going in together, we can now scale in large volumes to basically snowball this to grow bigger and bigger.
Okay. And are you going to be using the funds raised here to acquire facilities that are on the market or on their way out or undervalued or underperforming or whatever? You're going to acquire them at, you said, like 3 times EBITDA and or something like that? And then are you looking to acquire them or partner with them to manage them more efficiently and increase their profitability metrics and things like that? How's that value actually created? So are you guys buying them off the market, turning them around into profitable, cash cows, or are you partnering with these facilities and saying, look, we'll manage everything for you, and this is our management fee?
Yeah, so with the funds we raise, we are looking to basically buy them over. On the good side, normally we're looking at 1 times EBITDA, assets that are 1 times EBITDA. On the higher side, maybe we'll go up to 2 to 3, but rarely will we do that because we'll only do that if the asset value they are basically bringing is on a very, very high side. Because the next thing is that most primary healthcare owners own the facility as well. So they normally will sort of like park in that facility into the asset value. That means that if I purchase this asset, I also get the shop lot, for example, or the land with the healthcare facility. Because normally when you go into this kind of regulations, you don't want to move too much parts about, because the moment you move any parts about, you need to reapply for your licenses, you need to reapply for the regulations and stuff like that. And those things can be really tricky. So what we are trying to do is we're basically trying to get these assets. They are a bit slightly undervalued. And when we turnkey them, we increase their value higher. And in total, our whole portfolio under asset will also grow as a whole.
I mean, that's incredible. You're saying you're getting the land, the buildings, and the assets there, as well as the business and their licenses and all the compliance stuff that's already in place. You're acquiring all of that for, on average, you're looking to get them for 1 times EBITDA. And for those who don't know, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So that's basically like revenue. That's basically like profits, but before you take out like interest to your debtors and taxes to your government and amortization on the mortgage of the building or whatever, and depreciation on the other assets there, like whatever equipment is in the facility. So before that stuff's taken out, like you're looking at like 1 times your profits, but EBITDA. So for those who don't know, I say it like that because not a lot of people speak that language. So 1 times EBITDA is insane, dude. If you're acquiring, and I know I immediately turn into my DeFi stuff. I'm like, dude, what? It's mind blowing. So if you're acquiring the land, the buildings, the assets, the entire business, and they're like the facility and the equipment, for 1 times EBITDA on average. How is that possible? How does that even make sense? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, that's crazy. What if it's what if it's like a $500,000 property, and what if their EBITDA is like $100,000?
Yeah, so that's where the disparity will sort of come into play. So bringing it back down, obviously those are ideal situations. Let's bring it back down. So obviously, when it comes to the land and in terms of assets, normally what happens is that because these land or facility loans are very long term, so that means that we're basically picking up the tab on whatever it's balance in that sense. So we are also we also need to take into consideration. That's why I say like so
you're taking on their debt as well.
Correct, in that sense.
Okay.
But the benefit of all these assets is that we are not buying into businesses whereby it's running from scratch. We are buying into assets where they are already generating revenue enough to cover all of the issues and all of the things. They might not be able to cover, like, let's say, their whole loans and whatever it is, but it's on a steady growth, and they are still paying out in terms of profits to themselves, because most of this healthcare facility, the owners are the doctors. So they pocket basically everything else other than the fees they need to pay. And I was telling Alex earlier on, the benefit about healthcare is that when you consider the factor of the costing, because I'm an operations guy, so when you consider the fact about costing, you are only, for a healthcare facility, you're only looking mainly at the human resource component, which is your nurses, your assistants, and primary care. You don't need that many people. And the second one is probably your doctor. Then the next thing you're looking at is probably your inventory. And inventory normally goes off quite quickly because you don't need to like retain so many things, because you sort of have an idea in terms of the community you're in. What do they normally come in for? So, for example, it's flu season, you're going to stock up on certain things. When it's certain seasons, or maybe it's immunization season where people come in for vaccines, you got to bulk up on these things. So the inventory cost is, these 3 things are probably just your heaviest cost. Everything after that is pure profit.
Wow. And these facilities already have a customer base as well, right? They have regulars.
Yes.
Very interesting. So potentially these businesses, they want to exit. The owners want to exit. Like the doctor maybe owns his own facility. He wants to retire. He wants to exit. And, he's still got a loan on this land and the building, maybe a business loan. And, he's making a good living for himself. But the business on paper might not look like the most desirable thing, but you guys have specialized in finding these undervalued assets and businesses and using your expertise and other resources to have a turnkey business strategy that you can apply to these facilities by incorporating them into your whole network of facilities and resources to basically make them profitable very quickly. Is that right?
Yes, that would be correct.
That's super cool. I love it. That's great. That's really exciting. So I love that you're finding undervalued assets and making them more valuable. I think that's just really, really cool.
Yeah. But just to plug in a little bit more as well, if you read into our white papers, we're not only looking at to acquire primary care healthcare assets, we're also looking at other different facilities as well, because the whole healthcare segment is just not just one segment in terms of what we feel is undervalued. We also do know there are many like pharmaceutical companies that basically small mom and pop pharmaceutical companies, or maybe some of the more outskirt hospitals in that sense. And basically these are what YaBonks is basically currently highlighting is some of our business revenue incomes of how we are basically going to make our money. So primary care is just the key component because we know that it's the easiest to work around. The rest of what we are doing is an add-on service. So definitely it's not on a primary trajectory of just a linear scale. This is a scalable business in terms of what we're looking at long term. So it's not something that you would sort of come in and expect the growth to be the same because of what we are doing, we expect the growth to go upwards.
Okay, so you've got, as you mentioned, I was highlighting here from your white paper, at least 5 core methods of revenue streams that your business generates, and that's additional to acquiring and essentially transforming these underperforming assets into very profitable assets at a steep discount. So that strategy obviously is going to scale your capital and appreciate the value of those assets very quickly in the company portfolio, while at the same time you have multiple cash flow streams coming in through all these other services that you offer as well to further support and grow this thing. Is that right?
Correct. That's definitely a very good explanation.
I think that's great because, when I look at a real estate portfolio business like a REIT or something, oftentimes their main source of cash flow is rent. And then they get the asset appreciation on the land and the buildings. So they get that capital appreciation from the real estate side, but their cash flow is kind of bottlenecked. And if something goes wrong with that cash flow, it presents issues in the lifeline, the blood of the company. But that's why multi-tenant with multiple rent streams is a little less risky, but it's harder to get into because of the higher capital requirements to get into something like that. However, you've got not just the profitability of that specific healthcare facility as your cash flow, but you've got provision of medical services, healthcare as a subscription, automation as a service, managed services, and pharmaceutical sales that you also offer to other healthcare facilities that you haven't even acquired to generate cash flow, correct?
Correct. Because once you start scaling up, like I was mentioning before, you get special rates and discounts because we already have a lot of the technologies that we have. A lot of clinics and primary healthcares don't even use what's the word for it? Automated system like a POS or a COS system, basically like a customer-based system where they record. Most of them still use like paper cards where they're like, oh, here's your name, or where are you from? They pull out a big drawer and then starts indexing your name. Like a lot of these healthcare facilities don't even do that as a whole because it works for them and they don't see the need to incur any additional costs to upgrade and stuff like that. So as we scale, we can start offering these services, and when it becomes sort of a norm within the community is when we can start scaling this. And because we are, for example, ordering so many bulk consumables or medication, we can also then go to the smaller guys around us and say, look, you want a cheaper deal? I can maybe give you something cheaper at the same time. So there are many layers to what we are doing. And definitely in terms of as a traditional business, we always want to make sure that we park additional revenue streams on top of what we are doing.
Absolutely. And I think that further increases the robustness of your business plan. And I like it. So I can tell you, I worked, as I told you, for a financial services software development company that specialized in healthcare payment systems, automating their points of sales and customer management, and even kind of ERM, enterprise resource management stuff, but mainly CRM and POS. And it was a highly profitable business model that just rolling out automation that increased their efficiencies at small healthcare facilities as well as large hospital systems. So that's very cool that you have that kind of baked in to your turnkey transformation process, and also as your additional revenue stream that you can generate through third-party customers that you can just do business with in the community, right?
Yeah. Yes, that would be correct.
Very cool. All right, I think I'm getting an idea of your business model. Now, before we dive more into the business plan itself, I kind of want to just quickly run through some of the technical Web3 based stuff, the tokenomics, how it's going to integrate with DeFi, so that way my DeFi audience can have an idea of what to expect if they participate in this.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Now let's jump into the blockchain side of things and tokenomics and how you are integrating your primary healthcare facility acquisition and management companies with DeFi, Web3, and blockchain technologies. So,
Yeah.
John, what blockchain is KERC on?
So KERC is currently going to be launched on the Arbitrum chain. We are technically already are on the Arbitrum chain. The token is going to be, once the token is audited, in that sense, you will start seeing it. We'll release the contracts and stuff like that on the white paper as well. And the reason why we chose Arbitrum is because it's the new and upcoming blockchain. We feel like it's like me and our key developer, Snocky Pie. Some of you guys might know him in the community. We are big fans of the ETH network and basically just how simple it is. And basically Arbitrum is a great bridge in that sense for that, because you can just bridge your ETH across easily and the fees are super low in that sense.
Pennies, if that. I love it. I think Arbitrum's a good choice for new projects right now. Very hot, a lot of capital flowing onto Arbitrum. People looking for cool projects to jump into over there.
Yeah, so just going over the tokenomics, the reason why we went with 500 million, it's going to be a hard cap token. There's not going to be any more minted. So there's not going to be any functions for us to mint more or create more in the future. And the main reason why we needed 500 million instead of maybe 100 million or 200 million is because we do have future utilities for the tokens down the road, which we will definitely get into. And this sort of help create the buy pressure that we have envisioned in a sense. So most of the tokens are going to be basically used within the ecosystem of what we are creating. We're going to definitely allocate some to the operation side. The team is definitely going to have some of the tokens because we feel like it would be a bit of an incentive for us to have a bit of skin in the game, because we want to show you that we are also committed to this, to making sure the project works. And our team tokens are going to be vested for a year, at least for the first year, then it's going to be dripped out towards the second and third year. So this gives you an idea of saying, look, we're not going to dump on you. We are committed to make sure this works, because obviously we also do want some assets in a sense from this whole project. And the advisory is basically for people who we definitely need to bring on board to advise us on additional components, and what better way than to reward them with the benefits that they bring as well. And finally, the reserves are key mostly for governmental projects. So the benefit of us being in the traditional component is that we can bridge traditional components and the DeFi world. So how we sort of bring people into that DeFi world is by basically rewarding them with the DeFi rewards. So on top of whatever deal that we can structure with people, we can also basically start allowing them to get into our system. So if we say we strike a deal like, okay, look, if we do this deal together, maybe we'll give you, for example, 5,000 KERC tokens basically, and basically that will sort of get them into the ecosystem, and it will start opening a world of possibilities. That's what we feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to keep some on reserve for strategic partnerships and opportunities as they arise in the DeFi space, and doing some cool collaborations, things like that. I also like that you guys have team tokens. I know that's always a hot topic because some teams do it well and some teams do it egregiously. But if you do it well, and I like that you have a 12-month vesting period on your team token. So like you said, you're not going to dump your team's 8% of the tokens right off the bat and just see ya, which I've seen people do. But you have a 12-month vesting period to prevent that. I like that. And then also, since you have tokens coming to you after 12 months, you guys are probably going to try hard to make this a success and to support the KERC token. I like the mutually incentivized symbiotic relationship there between the team and the project's performance. So the token itself is called KERC. And does your project use anything else like NFTs, other fungible tokens, smart contracts, staking pools, anything like that?
Yeah, so I'll dive into the reason why we decided to go with a token instead of just an NFT or a node in a sense, because we had a node season. When we were developing this token and this project, we felt the need to ensure that there is a scalability to the project. We didn't want it to be just a streamlined project whereby we give you an NFT or a node whereby it shows you the stake of what you're getting in return, and that's it. Because you don't have an exit, you don't have the opportunity to grow the NFT other than the value of someone else buying over your NFT. There's no utilization other than a linear pathway. So with a token, we felt like we could do a lot more things down the road with it. And basically we can give more benefits back to the community and also structure more things around it. So the staking pools are going to come out down the road as we will go through over the tokenomics in that sense. And the staking pools are basically a way to sort of control the emissions and control the sell pressure in terms of for whatever we're doing. So as we spoke before earlier, we are paying out 1.5% on your stake amount that is fixed regardless of how many months you stake with us. So the options we have for staking would be 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. And obviously, the question you ask is, well, why the hell would I stake for 12 months? Is there any benefit to it? So as this first year, how we are basically trying to build your trust in us to say, look, this is not a project that is going to run away in like 9 months or 12 months. We are a project that's looking to build long-term sustainability. We're looking at years down the road. We're not going anywhere in that sense. This is a long-term to medium-term returns. So we're going to reward the people who come in the 12 months first. And normally when you come into a staking reward system, we know a lot of people will sort of like, hey, look, I would start you off at maybe a 0, then every month as you stake, I'll give you more and more and more. We decided that, hey, look, we want to reward the really early guys. And we said, how can we financially structure this from the traditional side into the DeFi side? So how we're doing that is we are basically calculating in terms of what we can do sustainably in the long term to the stakers. So what you'll be airdrop is if you stake for 12 months, is an additional bonus of the KERC tokens instead of just the USDC or USDT that you'll be paid out. So you'll be paid out as Alex is showing you right now, the month 1 to basically month 12 are progressively dropping down. And in total, what you'll be getting is roughly about a 295% return on your investment size. So what that means is that the amount of KERC tokens you hold by the end of month 12 would probably be tripled in amount if you do decide to maybe buy more KERC tokens with the rewards you get monthly into the whole ecosystem. And that basically translates your 1.5% fix as a base to roughly about 6 to 8% a month, which is what we can safely reward our investors down the road, but long term. And why do I say that is because the key question that we came across when we talk about traditional business and funds under management with any project, even traditional or DeFi, would be the scalability of how fast I can pay back rewards. The issue with rewards is that you can only generate so much income with so much assets at a given moment. It will always take time for you to sort of scale your business upwards. So in my case and this project's case, if you give me $10 million, for example, at a head start, I can no way in hell buy maybe, for example, 50 assets in 1 month. That would be just me recklessly going out and buying left, right, and not doing any due diligence.
You can hire me. I'm really great at due diligence. You can hire me. I'll take all the jobs I can get, man. I'm a hustler, so I'll help you acquire some healthcare assets.
Yeah, so that's why we sort of break up our initial target of fundraising to basically a few components. So that also means that after the hard sale, we will be doing raises, but down the road as well. We don't know when yet because we basically want to be able to be I would say, prudent with our spending and also be very careful with our spending. So the 1.5% that we are paying out fixed on top of the participation rewards is accounted for in a sense of how many assets we can acquire month on month with the funds that we have. So that means we estimate about 4 to 5 facilities on a higher scale, what we can acquire a month on a full ramped up scale compared to 10, 20. I would say a good amount is that's a good leverage. So once we fully utilize the treasury amount to acquire those assets is when we probably move towards the next raise. Then, as you said, we scale. Because if you give me 10 million at the start, if I were to pay out 1.5% on the 10 million invested in me, that would be pure Ponzonomics, because I would not be able to acquire those level of income and assets, because even if I'm acquiring the assets that really are generating revenue, no way in hell that I can acquire that fast to pay out 1.5% of 10 million at any given moment at a go, in that sense.
So you're saying basically there is a limit to how much gasoline can be poured on your fire realistically. So like you can only use this much money in this time period effectively, whereas otherwise things would get sloppy and maybe out of control, or you wouldn't be able to maintain the reward structure that you want to give as bonuses to participants out here and things like that. So you're going to do further fundraises once you've deployed the capital raised here effectively. Then once that capital has been deployed and put to work, you're going to do follow-up fundraising rounds to get more batches of capital to then deploy, tranches, if you will, and deploy that the new funds for further acquisitions afterwards. And you're saying currently with your team and yourself and the experts at this due diligence and targeting and acquisition of these assets, you can realistically do 4 to 5 per month. And at 4 to 5 per month, what is the total amount you're looking to raise here during this private round, pre-sale round, and public launch right now?
So for this private round, if you're lucky enough to get involved, we are raising a total of 500,000 for this private round, just to reward the earlier guys, to sort of like jumpstart the whole community, get the whole community going, to basically see the future of what we can do and to reward them. This is definitely not in the white paper. What we will be having down the road is the pre-sale and the public sale. So in total, our target is about 8 million in total. But like I said, we've split down it to the pre-sale and the public sale so that we can sort of use our capital very, very efficiently, because we are committed to removing the whole Ponzonomics 100% from our business model. We believe that we can safely generate with any new assets about 2% at the start, given the pain points that we will sort of go through. So we gave ourselves a 1.5% buffer in a sense to be in the safe side for all of this. So I think what we've probably failed to mention also a few times is that on top of your 1.5%, there will be participation rewards that will be paid out. So what this means is that as the clinics and assets or whatever we hold generate more profits, we'll be pushing more of that profits back into the investors. And as a start, obviously, we do not know in terms of like what the scalability factors from some of the assets, because even if I can do the best due diligence there's maybe some hidden rats underneath the carpet that he hid really well in that sense. You never know in that sense. Or there are some skeletons in the closets, for lack of better words, since we're in healthcare.
I think I understand, especially healthcare, because you've got like legal insurance for like malpractice suits. People oftentimes, whether there's real malpractice or not, might even just levy those suits against a clinic to try to get some money out of them, or like payoff to go away, basically. I know there are, at least in the United States, people who are who make a whole business suing people to try to get payoffs like that. And I assume it's the same way in other countries as well, where there can be malpractice suits, civil suits, as well as criminal. And a lot of times if it's just somebody saying, hey, I don't like how that doctor treated me, I think he did a bad job, I want to sue him, the doctors usually have some kind of legal liability insurance to protect them from that. So they only pay a premium each month or whatever for that insurance. And then if a lawsuit is levied against them, the insurance covers the fees to take care of that. So that way they don't just like get sued into oblivion just because they're in a healthcare business, right?
Yeah. So these are, for example, great examples what Alex brought up. So obviously at the start, we cannot basically predict in terms of what is the level that we can push towards back to investors. But as I said, so as the assets start scaling and as we start scaling those assets, when we have a better picture and when we start turnkeying their margins and profits upwards is when we can start increasing basically the participation profits. And ideally, I can say for now, obviously where we want to get to as a place is to pay out averagely month to month to 6 to 7% on average. Because obviously there's going to be I'm not going to put rainbows and sunshines over this. There's no way in hell that I can safely say I can do 12% every single month, no fail. That's ridiculous in terms of any traditional businesses. There definitely will be good seasons, bad seasons in that sense. Holiday seasons are notoriously poor in terms of primary care because people just wait until the next day because I'm on holiday in a sense. So these are examples in terms of where we definitely see a dip in terms of earnings. So
yeah,
the goal is to basically get a good average month on month rather than a crazy amount every single month. I think that's more realistic in terms of what we're trying to do. So some months, maybe you will see a total of 4 or 5%. Some months, maybe you see 10%, for example. But like I said, the point where we want to get to as a team is a safe 6 to 7% month on whatever that's invested or in a sense to the investors.
So there are fixed rewards each month on the tokens. And do you have to have your tokens staked to get the rewards?
Yes. So that's where we get to the next part. So to avoid the issue of basically people just dumping the tokens and to just swing trade the tokens in a sense, we've created a staking system. So obviously, if you stake longer, you get more airdrops in this first year. We definitely will not be continuing this airdrop program the next following year because I believe that once we start showing that our assets and how much we can pay out in terms of stable coins, we're not paying you out in KERC again, by the way. Okay. If we start showing that is honestly the best testimony, and that would honestly just bring in more people because we aim to go for stability rather than just moonboying the whole thing up to the moon in a sense.
Moonboy, that's why I got my moon lamp right here. So that way I always remind myself, don't be a moonboy YouTuber. Try to be a realistic business analyst and tech analyst. And I like that you can appreciate that. And if it is if there are moonboy projects out there where they just want to moon and have their limelight for a few weeks and then fade away into the darkness, I'm cool with that as long as I know that up front. As long as I know that's what the game is. But we're looking here at 1.5% stable rewards per month plus an additional performance fee or performance reward based on how well the assets perform after you've transformed them. And as you said, there could be a lull of a couple months right here, 3 to 6 months. There might be a dip in the performance of new assets as you take ownership and you start turning that key, which could include, human resource turnover. Some people might go with the doctor in a small clinic sense. Like, oh, well, if he's going, I'm going. You have to replace, part of the team, retrain, restaff. And then also, like you said, skeletons in the closet, liens that you didn't know about, or, in lawsuits potentially against that particular company that you're acquiring, things like that. And then compliance and regulatory issues that you might have to button up before you can fully take ownership and start receiving the profits from those operations. Did I explain that part right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's explained right. Probably just the last component of whereby these assets are already generating stable income. So what we have experience with and what we've seen so far is that there's definitely not going to be a dip to zero because primary care is a necessity in any community. So what would happen and what the pain points we generally see is that the people who normally come in as a regular basis, they will see a new face as a doctor there, and they'll be like, I'm not the biggest fan. And that's where they will sort of like hop off. They'll go find somewhere else, because primary healthcare clinics are abundant in the sense of, like, in the same street you can find like 3 or 4. But when I won't say consumer, because that's not very nice to say for healthcare. But when you're a participant in healthcare, you sort of have a very loyal base, because healthcare is a very personal thing. Once you find a doctor you really like, you stick to them. I know people who, even they moved 10 kilometers away from their primary care doctors, they'll still go back to the same guy, because I've known you for 10 years and you're my guy in that sense. I trust you. Right. So what we do have is a phase out system for older doctors. As the older doctors hands over the business to us, we sort of make them stay back for maybe a month or 2. We'll bring in a doctor who is similar in the sense of I would say more towards gender and race, so that the clients who already are coming are more used to basically that same doctor. So for example, if an asset we're taking over is for example an Asian female doctor, we need to make sure that we basically replace with the same sort of type of doctor in that sense per se, so that because for example most patients come to her because they have concerns of maybe more of sexual health issues, and that was what that clinic is known for in that area. So we don't want to basically change how the business model works for them. We want to basically replicate and optimize in a sense, see how we can increase what they've already been doing in a sense. Because you need to also remember, normally these doctors who assets we are taking over are quite old, so their hours are less for sure. They don't see the need to upgrade any equipment. They don't see the need to basically include more services, because money is good. They're not looking to make the millions in a sense. They're comfortable with whatever they're making, and they've done this for years. So it's just about, I'm just going to chug along the old train. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Right. But for us, we sort of have found a niche point where we realize okay, look, the moment we come in, we need to increase the hours. We need to include a few key healthcare things that definitely the area needs. This is where we assess in terms of the pain points. So that transition is going to, what we said, is going to take a while. And the component of, if you fear that the doctors leave and the patients all leave, there's not going to be that change, because we do have a phase out program with the doctors and the assets that we acquired.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So right when you acquire a new asset, you're going to have a ramping up period. They're still going to be producing cash flow, but the cash flow should ramp up as you increase operational efficiency and leanness and things like that. And you're looking to take them from 10 to 15% for new acquisitions to approximately 50 to 60% EBITDA margins at full operating capacity here in your white paper. Yeah. Cool, man. That's awesome. And then as that ramps up and the performance keeps going up, then the performance bonuses that get tacked on for stakers goes up proportionally month after month, right?
Correct.
Now, are those performance profits paid out in stable coins as well?
Yes, correct. So the participation rewards are also paid out in stable coins as well. I think the key thing that probably we did not mention is that we would choose the one to use USDC as an optimal goal, because personally, I think the Snocky Pie and I are more fans of USDC compared to USDT. But at this time moment, because of some issues with the SEX and the transferring of USDC on the Arbitrum chain, because they've sort of paused that transaction, we sort of need to reassess when the time comes whether we can sort of pay out in USDC or USDT until that whole issue gets resolved. Because definitely as we on-ramp the revenue from the fiat to the stable coins, we do need to use a level of SEX in that sense. Basically the centralized exchanges, we do need to use them, because these are some of where the currency changes they're housed at, and we feel it's more safer rather than I do an OTC with a money changer off-chain, because the issue with that is that we obviously do want to create some level of trust because we're not transacting a small amount of money, number one. Number two, it's not our money per se in a sense because we are liable to return the rewards to all the investors. So that's where we see the pain points of the USDC and USDT issue sort of panning out. Just to answer that question.
Okay, so tentatively, according to the white paper, USDC rewards, but it could be a variation of stable coins that the team believes are the most secure and robust, and you'll probably maintain on-chain assets in a diversified portfolio of stable coins. Is that right?
Correct. So all of our assets would definitely be housed in any additional treasury funds will be housed in stable coins, not in our KERC tokens.
Okay. All right, cool. And there will also be KERC tokens, KERC token rewards on top of the fixed 1.5% monthly stablecoin rewards and the participation performance rewards that are also stablecoin based. There will also be KERC tokens airdropped as additional bonuses on top of that potentially.
Yes. So like I said, the first two raises that we have, we're going to do an airdrop bonus for everyone who sort of stakes longer with us. So the longer you stake with us, the more airdrop tokens you're going to be entitled to. And this will sort of push your APY up because we want to reward the people who sort of like come in at very early stages. And we also do understand that this is crypto. And if I were to just give a small amount of reward at the start, it's not very nice to everyone. Everyone do wants to see like an explosion of potential. And we know we can give an explosion of potential. It's just that we only can do it as the business scales. So this is how we say, look, thank you for trusting us with the project so far. We're going to reward you in a longer term. So the earliest stakers who stake for 12 months will reap the most benefits from this program.
Got it. Okay. And this chart we showed where it's the stake and rewards chart for pre-sale, where if you stake for 12 months, you're potentially looking at 295% APY. Is that APY then in KERC token or USD or dollars?
So that will be in KERC. So basically that would mean the value of your portfolio with us. So essentially, like I mentioned before, you are now getting 3 times of 1.5%. So you're no longer getting just your 1.5% is not 1.5% because if you do choose to stake the airdrop bonuses that you have, it increases your positional value. So there's, like I said, the idea is that we want to get to a good 6 to 7% average month-on-month for reward. So this is how we're going to ensure that the first year people would reap the benefit for instead of the people who are coming in next year, because once the price is stable, they're going to get that average amount in a sense a month. But how do we then reward the people who came in earlier? So this is how we sort of are going to jumpstart you to get to that point eventually.
I do like that you have the rewards boosted in the beginning to reward early believers who take the biggest risk, just like in traditional venture capital and angel investing and things like that. Those initial seed funders and like here, seed funders and pre-sale, they take the biggest risk, so they should have the biggest reward. That's how it always goes. And so I think that's nice that for the people who believe in you early on and take that risk with your venture, they'll get month 1, if they stake for 12 months, they'll get 20% extra KERC tokens. Month 2, 17%. And then it has kind of a sliding scale downwards. So that way by month 12, it's 3.5% for a total of 295% APY in KERC tokens. So basically, if you have 1,000 KERC tokens, am I right to say by the end of that 12 month, if you were to stake it right from the start all the way through, you'd be looking at just about 3,000 tokens in your bag?
Yeah, that will be right.
Cool. All right, good to know. And for the official launch, they people who buy in after the public sale also get a similar kind of reward structure. Obviously not as juicy as for the pre-sale people who believed early on and got in early to help support this project, but official launch still gets pretty hefty rewards here, where at the 12-month staking starts at 10% per month, then 7%, 5%, all the way on down to about 137% APY in KERC tokens for the official launch. If people were to buy right at launch and stake it that first month for 12 months, they could be looking at 137% APY in KERC tokens. Did I get that right?
Correct. So after the pre-sale, the hard launch, because like I said, again, we do also want to reward the early stakers, because we do know some people maybe want to see some assets first that we do, or some track records that we've done.
Right.
And you want to basically see some of these come into play first before you jump into the project. We completely understand that. So that's why we're also choosing to reward them, but at a significantly less amount in that sense. Right. So this also goes into the structures that we're going to have to sort of ensure that people that we are legit. We're not here to basically scam you and take your money in that sense. I think later down the road we'll cover some of this, whereby we do have we plan to have community audits at least once a year, but we will have 2 this year. So because we want to get the people down to start seeing what we've done after the pre-sale, to show, look, have a look at our books, have a look at all the assets we have, we tour them around. And what better way than to basically reward the earlier guys by doing a raffle as well. So this is what we will also have for the pre-sale guys, is we will probably do about 5 to 6 people in total. How we go about there, we will sort of announce it later on, but it'll be a raffle whereby any wallet that sort of bought KERC with us at the pre-sale round will run through a raffle whereby we'll basically fly you down to where we are at, and you get to see all the facilities and everything for real as a whole.
That's super cool. I love when projects do that, because a lot of this stuff is so virtual, and there's layers of separation where there are so many like proxies of trust, where you're just hoping that it's not some big charade, right? And if somebody that is like a third-party member of the community that people trust, and they go there and they take a picture in one of these facilities and say, yeah, this is their facility. I've talked with the people that work here, and they corroborated everything you're saying, that you guys own this facility essentially, or manage it. That's basically going to be very hard to refute. Seeing with your own eyes makes things completely different. And I also understand how some people out here like to see a proof of concept for a business model in action before they dip their toes in. And that's totally awesome. And at that point, their risk to enter into such an investment has gone way down. Like, the risk has gone way down. So the potential rewards scale proportionally. The risk reward ratio changes for those people versus the early believers who just say, I love it. I'm diving in the deep end. I believe this has a lot of potential. And they get in private or pre-sale or early on. They get a higher reward and a higher risk reward ratio, higher risk, higher reward. It all makes sense. And I think that's how it should be. That's how it always has been in traditional finance and entrepreneurship, tech startup stuff, and any business startup really. And so I love that you're very transparent about all of that and upfront with the numbers and everything.
Yeah, thank you. That's why we're doing 2 rounds. So at December, the first round would be after the pre-sale. Then December would be the round where probably the hard launch would be sort of done. So we get another round of people just come to see the expansion of growth. Here we like to be transparent completely, especially when a lot of the funds, we need to be upfront with everyone to say, look, a lot of the funds are going to go off ramp, and obviously, in DeFi, it's going to be tough for some people to sort of trust that process, but we want to be transparent with the whole component. And I think this is the only and best way we can do it to prove to you in terms of the audit papers. So you see the trail of funds of where it moved to step by step in a sense. And basically, you can start corroborating what we're saying to the community and saying, look, the funds are there, they've moved this is what they spend. And it's not like some game of bait and switch that we're trying to do here as well.
Right. And that was one of my questions is, how can you prove that you're actually generating revenue to pay out these rewards. I know that's always a hot button topic. So because people are like, oh, the Ponzi-nomics, they're just paying earlier investors with new investors money and stuff like that. And, obviously, I'm okay with that as long as you know what it is getting into it, right? Versus deceptive marketing. Somebody's saying, no, this is a revenue stream-based business. And in which case, how do you prove to the skeptics that it's not some sort of Ponzi-nomics, that you have a revenue-generating business, now that revenue is what's actually creating the rewards, and you're saying you're going to have visits by community members and KERC holders that will be chosen by a raffle system, and you guys are going to fly them to Malaysia and give them tours of the facilities under management by KERC, and then also show them the books and give them a transparent accounting of the funds after they've been off-ramped and everything to the banks, and how those funds have been deployed. Did I get that right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think one key thing is that we're still a traditional business. We can't just open up the bonnet of our engine and just show everyone online in terms of like how we operate in a sense. Because we do have the secret sauce in terms of like how we turnkey the system. This is how we do it in a sense. So we don't want to just reveal it to everyone. So what better way than for you to come down and basically go through our audit books in a sense. These are by companies, not by us. That means we're not auditing ourselves. These are legit audit companies that will do our audits in a sense, our books. So you can basically start cross-referencing in terms of what we do as our monthly report out to everyone compared to what is actually happening on the books, whereby we also bring down our auditors down and our accountants down as well. And we probably have a session whereby the community guys can just sit in and just ask them all the questions, and we'll just stay out of it in a sense.
And I don't know if I'm not going to go into detail in some of the stuff you showed me as part of my due diligence process when I was, before I agreed to bring you on my channel. But during my 20 or 30 hours that I've gone through everything I could find on you guys and you and your previous businesses and current businesses, it seemed legit to me. I mean, you got multiple registered organizations with assets under management verified by multiple third parties and organizations and websites. Also, I saw some of your audited financials for those companies audited by third-party accounting firms and not internally audited, like you were just saying. And I looked over that, and the numbers looked good, assuming all those documents were real and everything, and I have no reason to believe they're not, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The numbers were fantastic. Your ratios are great. Your margins are insane. It does seem like you guys have some kind of secret sauce in terms of a competitive business advantage here in your specific field. And I love that you have crossed over to the DeFi world where now I can participate in a way and get into that. So, but I love the transparency. I'm all about due diligence. As you found out, I know I asked you for a lot, and even better, you gave me more than I asked for. You were very upfront and forthcoming with as much documentation, even stuff you're like, this is confidential. Don't share this stuff, obviously, and I won't. But I appreciate you having that level of trust in me to share some of your internal documents and financials and stuff. And also, I know you've got more documents coming with your company registry information. So you've already got the first company registered for KERC, and you have one more being registered that should be done soon, right?
Yeah, so that is being done this week as well. We're just waiting for the papers. Technically, both have been done. So the main reason why is because, as what Alex said, we needed 2 structural companies rather than just one, is because of the whole crypto space. I think this goes in line with the conversation of, okay, you're a traditional business. Is crypto legal where you are? So the statement would be that in Southeast Asia, crypto is actually quite welcome. It's still within a gray line because Southeast Asia is well known normally for being sort of like a Cephas in lack of better translation. And I think that's the easiest way I can translate the whole model of how we function. Basically, whatever anyone else do, we watch them do it first, then we will basically do it ourselves. And because we sort of need to do it in our own version, because the cultural and how things work here are a little bit different, but we normally like to see things done first. We are not very innovative in that sense with laws and bylaws. So the area in terms of crypto in Southeast Asia is very gray. It's very welcoming in a sense whereby as long as you know the guidelines of what you can and cannot do, you won't get in trouble. Because as of this time moment, the government is very happy to open up our doors to innovation and new innovations. And especially as you've seen recently, Hong Kong has exploded in terms of welcoming people, crypto community into their arms. We believe that Southeast Asia is going to do the same. It's just that it's going to probably be in our own terms on how we go about that. For example, we also know that Singapore is sort of building their own CBDC coin and stuff like that. So that will be their term of how they want to control it. And I think overall regulation is good for crypto space. I don't think it's bad because personally, I think when regulation comes into place, you get the more traditional guys start moving into crypto. You get the big PE firms, you get the BlackRock of Southeast Asia to start coming into the crypto space because now it's regulated. I can start offering this to my traditional clients. And this would actually boost all the projects who are lack of funding in a sense, for given a better word in terms of this moment. So I'm for crypto regulation. So because of that, we were advised by our tax agents to sort of create this structure to avoid the whole tightrope of walking on as being an IDO or ICO, at the same time of ensuring that whatever currency or stable coins that we bring into fiat is not immediately recognized as profits, because if you do that, the Southeast Asia countries here, we consider that as profits. That means the moment you move crypto into fiat, they immediately see as profits because they don't know where you got it from. I'm just going to consider as profits. I don't care. So this is why we need to sort of create these two structures whereby I'm definitely happy to go more in depth to maybe another day in a sense, because there are some legal components that they probably need more time to dive into and explain the structure. But this is why we have those two companies to sort of like front run, one as the investment holding and one as the operational component.
Okay. Good. All right, good. That's great to know. Because every jurisdiction is different. And if you've spoken with legal and accounting experts in your area, and they recommend two business entities, one for your holding company for your assets under management, and the other for your operational side of things that you on and off ramp the crypto, so that way you can, not get taxed unfairly and unnecessarily on things that aren't actually income. They're still, flowing through the business and haven't been taken as profit yet. I think that's great. So that's good to know. And both companies have been registered, and you're just waiting for verification on the second company. I did see the verification on the first company. I believe that was your holding company. And then the second one is any day now. I think you said probably within a week you'll probably have that back with the stamp of approval from Malaysia and the Malaysian government. What state or city are you guys doing business in mainly?
So we are not tied down to one state or city in the sense of Malaysia. I'm glad you brought that up as well, because we definitely see opportunity in the whole Southeast Asia. But we started off in Malaysia because we know that there's a lot of undervalued assets here, number one. Number two, you get more mileage for whatever we raise in terms of US dollars. Because right now, in terms of the whole healthcare segment, what we look at in Southeast Asia, primarily Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, because these are, we feel like, the bit more undervalued market and market which are in a growth stage and can explode in terms of growth. compared to the other Southeast Asia markets. So in terms of the balance, a good balance between structural and how welcoming the government is to crypto, Malaysia was the best bet, because in Singapore, the price points are a bit higher. So we will definitely move down there once we start scaling in terms of that. But to get the most bang for our buck, we'll be spreading ourselves all around whole of Malaysia. So it won't be just the cities, in a sense, city centers. We are looking at also the outskirts, because sometimes, especially in primary care, you're looking at a facility that caters to maybe about a couple thousand people, because they're a bit more on the rural side. So you don't discount those guys out, because those guys still serve a large community, and they are all the community has. So they do make some good revenue. It's just that, obviously, again, they're not sexy revenue in the millions in a sense, but they are good revenue. So on scale, it is good overall.
And it's still assets, like you said, in a fast developing area that is undervalued currently and growing quickly. So that's always a good position to be in. Now, what is the conversion? What was it called? Ringgit Malaysia? Is that the currency in Malaysia? What's the conversion there to US dollars? Do you know?
Yeah, so right now, as of, what's the date today? 31st. I think it's about 4.5 to 4.6 Malaysian ringgit to a dollar. So you do get a lot of mileage in terms of what you get for your dollar.
All right, good to know. So about 4.5 ringgit Malaysia for every US dollar. And if you guys are raising, 500,000 private sale and $2.5 million pre-sale, and then another $5 million public sale, $8 million total. If you guys totally sell out your hard cap, then that's a lot of ringgit, man. So that's it's a lot of RMs. And you said that it has a lot more mileage there, so that might allow you to get extra efficiencies. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely correct. I think also the key thing is to sort of like reel everyone in. There's actually not a lot in terms of the healthcare segments, because a healthcare facility can range from about 100 to 200,000 US dollars per facility in that sense. These are like the smaller scale ones. Once you start talking about bigger group ones, or maybe let's say if I want to buy a smaller chain out in that sense, you can start looking at maybe about 500,000 to 600,000 US dollars. If maybe I want to get a smaller community hostel, I want to buy them out, that might be $1 million to 1.5 million US dollars. So in terms of healthcare, this is what we mean by it's not cheap to get into to the healthcare segment. And this is considered cheap because it's in Malaysian ringgit. But if I go to Singapore, if I want to buy, for example, primary care asset, that would probably cost me about, just to start off, about 500,000 to 600,000 US dollars. While in comparison, I can get the same one in Malaysia for about $100,000 to $200,000. So healthcare is not cheap to enter in.
Yeah. And I know Singapore is kind of a booming financial, they have a booming financial industry there. They're kind of like a financial hub of that part of the world. And I've worked with multiple companies from Singapore, and I understand, things are expensive there. So makes sense to leverage your currency arbitrage situation in your countries there, and then move into the higher cost of capital countries like Singapore, but starting out in like Malaysia, where you are, and have all your expertise and everything right now. Do you have any assets that you guys have acquired in your other companies outside of Malaysia currently?
Yeah, so we do have some companies outside of Malaysia, because when we started this whole healthcare journey personally, I started off this healthcare journey in sort of medical tourism. This was my forefront and frontier into healthcare in a sense. I'm not a doctor, if you have to ask me in a sense, but I've learned a lot in healthcare that sort of needs me to converse with doctors in that sense. So that's why I probably know a little bit more. but I'm not anywhere near in terms of doctor knowledge. So that was our forefront into medical tourism. We do have some companies in Canada, because when we started the whole healthcare journey. We started to bring patients from America into Southeast Asia for more affordable healthcare. Because as conversations I was having with Alex before, primary care and healthcare in the US is whacked. Like, it's insane how much you guys pay for healthcare. That's
crazy.
So the exact same basic healthcare that maybe you would say, I wouldn't say basic healthcare, I would say a yearly scan you need every 5 years for a man who's above 40, would probably cost you about 11 to 15,000 US dollars in the States on average. If you go to a more expensive hospitals, you're looking at 23,000 US dollars. If you pay fully on insurance, then you probably have a co-pay or some system like that. Depends on which insurance providers you're using. So we're working basically with some private insurance healthcare systems in the US to basically offset the costs, because they were doing it on a nominal basis, whereby they were actually sending their executives down to Costa Rica, Colombia, Mexico, at like maybe half the cost. So what they normally include is include a flight, a hotel, and you get a good time there, you get your health check, and you basically get to renew your healthcare, because that's the system that they were running on. And when we got in contact with them, we decided, hey, look, you guys have sometimes come to Singapore too. Why don't we open up your foray to Thailand and Malaysia as well? Because for the exact same costing of just the scans, the CT scans, the angiograms, the biops that you probably need for a 40U and above, you can get it at the same cost in maybe Thailand and Malaysia at probably about 3,000. Let me convert that into US dollars. About 1,000 to 2,000 US dollars. So it's nearly 10 times the difference of what you're paying in the States compared to what you're paying here. So this allows us immediately to get the executives down here on like a business class flight. We can give you a 5-star hotel. We can give you a limousine, and still be within cost of your healthcare. The only thing that you probably pay more is basically the time, because of the travel distance, because it is quite a far journey. So normally it's like a 4 or 5 day ordeal. So that's where sort of my foray into healthcare comes from. And this is sort of like the other assets that I have outside this project that I'm starting on. So with this whole component, just to give you another backstory of how we got into this, is that when we got into the pandemic, obviously the whole healthcare and travel, medical tourism sort of had to die down. And we leveraged on our expertise of having basically human organizational skills and networkings to sort of bridge the gap to work with the government in that whole pandemic season where everyone was sort of locked down. We managed to get contracts with the government to vaccinate and also to test people. So we have experience handling, I would say easily 400 to 500 human resource in terms of doctors and nurses during the whole pandemic time. We have experience of vaccinating easily a couple of million people within Malaysia, swabbing also within a couple of 100,000. And basically, with this experience, we were given the opportunity to move into managing healthcare assets. And this is where sort of the team that we've built is a very robust team, whereby they've stuck through us with the pandemic season, where they've learned a lot as well throughout this whole phase. And we've grown together with them to be able to create this turnkey system coming out of the pandemic.
Well, I would love to go on a vacation to Southeast Asia. So if I ever have to get an operation done or diagnostics, I'm going to call you up, John, and be like, hey, I want to do this for 1/10 the price, but I want to go to Malaysia for a week. And I think that's such a cool business idea, and a business that how long have you been doing? How did you put it? It's medical
tourism.
Medical tourism. How long have you been in the medical tourism business?
So I've been in this industry for about 9 years.
That's really cool. I love it.
I think it'll be 10 years this year. My 10th year this year in the healthcare field.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's great. Now, a lot of people might ask, well, is the quality of the healthcare in Malaysia compared to like the United States or Canada, where it costs 10 times as much? Is it comparable in terms of quality of healthcare and safety and things like that?
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, most of our major hostels are JCI accredited. It's basically sort of like the highest level of healthcare regulations you can sort of get in terms of certification and SOPs. It's like the ISO of hospitals basically worldwide in a sense. And all the major hostels in Malaysia and Southeast Asia are normally JCI accredited. And another key point, the reason why they are structured in that way is a little to a lot of people unknown fact. The largest healthcare owner, basically the PE, the largest healthcare PE in the world, is actually Malaysian owned. They're called IHH. You can look them up basically later on. They actually own a big chunk of a lot of major healthcare facilities all around the world, including like the John Hopkins hospitals groups and stuff. They own a majority stake in them. The Mayo Clinic group also, they own a majority stake in them because the previous government actually saw the forefront of healthcare as a key component. So when he started this program, that sovereign fund there has sort of like moved and acquired a lot of healthcare assets around the world. So we do have very, very high standards in terms of healthcare. And what better way for me to say than maybe just drop by and we'll show you around and you can see what it's all about.
Dude, I know I need to keep it professional. This is talking about large healthcare facilities and organizations here and all that, but dude, that sounds like so much fun. I don't get out much, so just like that'd be like a dream to go, go to Southeast Asia, go to Malaysia and see this stuff in person. So if that opportunity ever opens up, don't forget about old YaBonks here. I would do that in a heartbeat. And I'll show everybody, hey, this is the facility that they acquired, and this is another one that you guys acquired. So I would love to see that, and I'm sure many community members would as well. So I love that you guys also have a raffle for your core community and believers to bring them out there for the same thing. And you're in the medical tourism business for the last decade, so you're probably an expert on managing the logistics of that kind of thing. Am I right?
Yeah. We'll get you here, no problem, fine. You will be completely safe because we know that Malaysia is sort of like not a very well-known destination throughout the world because we're normally outshined by either Singapore, like the vibrancy of Singapore, or the beaches of Thailand. So we're sort of like underlooked, and we are normally called like the sleeping tiger of Southeast Asia in a sense. So it's definitely a place that we feel we could utilize in this season, and it's a very good starting ground to kick off whatever we're doing.
That sounds super interesting. I would love it, and it seems like a cool area. I've spent a lot of time looking at maps of the area, and it looks beautiful. So yeah, I would love it, and that's very interesting that you said. What is it called? JCI?
Yes, JCI.
The JCI, and that's an international standardization rating system for healthcare and medical facilities. And you're telling me Malaysia ranks among the highest in the world. Is that right?
Not the highest in the world because basically
up there, though.
Yeah, it's a certification where it's like I said, it's like the ISO for companies in a sense.
Okay.
But so the hospital sort of uses them to sort of grade their healthcare facilities. So like how the ISO system sort of like grades the SOP for Fortune 500 companies or big companies in that sense to say, look, the SOPs are top notch. You have no issues with the operations. There's less likely issues to arise. JCI sort of does the same thing in a way by they make sure that, okay, the SOP for the nurses are well known. They have like sort of like every, I don't know what, like 50 steps, there's a defibrillator on the wall or something like that instead of for any emergencies. Like these are like sort of the things we're talking about. So in terms of like the healthcare facilities we're talking about, they are very well trained in that sense. So these are not like dingy hospitals that you would go to in that sense.
That's really good to know because I'm sure a lot of people who aren't familiar with these things, and I don't think most people where I'm from would think something like that or get that impression of why is it so much cheaper there. but because you hear of people going down to like from the United States to Mexico to get like stem cell injections and like some kind of fringe medical operations that aren't standard here. But then you also hear of all sorts of complications and people talking about like dingy back alley kind of clinics, if you will. So that's good that you guys are JCI accredited facilities there. And SOP, I'm assuming you mean standard operating procedures. Is that right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
You guys have kind of like internationalized, standardized, standard operating procedures for many of these medical procedures, as well as how the facilities are laid out, the resources and tools and medications used in them, and for how certain treatments are done for certain conditions and patients. And that is why in your medical tourism experience over the past decade, you've learned the different countries that offer or that meet those standards. And is that how you kind of saw an opportunity in Malaysia where you saw undervalued assets and with high levels of standards that meet your medical tourism JCI level of standards, and you're like, hey, I can acquire these assets if I get the right people together and enough capital, and then I can transform them into profitable businesses with your COO type of experience, and then now you're trying to expand that. Did I lay out that timeline of your life correctly?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Again, you laid it out well in that sense. You condensed my I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes, a little ramble of my life history in terms of to like short 1 minute.
It's fascinating to me. I think it's a cool career you've had, and your entrepreneurial journey is fascinating to me, and how you've identified these opportunities in the world and have capitalized on them in a way that creates more value that maybe wasn't there before or just hadn't reached its full potential yet. And you're going there and nurturing these assets to reach their full potential. And then you're benefiting, your company stakeholders are benefiting. And now our DeFi communities potentially can benefit from it as well. So I love it, man. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now I got a couple other questions here. So you're trying to raise, you have a hard cap with private sale, pre-sale, and public sale of $8 million. That's the hard cap. Any more than that, and you're going to have a tough time figuring out how to deploy that capital with your acquisition target of 4 to 5 assets a month, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a minimum amount that you have to hit for this business plan to be feasible?
As of this time moment, no, we don't, because we do believe people will see the vision in terms of what we are doing. Even if, let's just say, we raise a smaller cap amount, we can easily acquire a small amount of assets. And it's just that obviously the scale effectability will be just slightly less in terms of what we are doing. Ideally, obviously, if we hit our targets, the participation rewards will basically fly off the shelves on the longer time scale. It's just that if we raise shorter than what we have, is the participation rewards will basically just be smaller. And I don't think anyone will sort of have an issue with that, because as long as we are stable, we are here, we are growing, I think everyone will win at the end of the day.
Okay, good to know. Also, just a really quick touch on accountability and transparency. We talked about the raffle and flying people out there to do in-person visits. You also have in your white paper here that performance reports are going to be published on the 7th of the following month, every month, for full transparency. And then profits for the previous month will be paid out on the 15th of the following month. So how are you going to publish those performance reports to show kind of, some of the financials and how the operation is doing? How are you gonna do that, and what all is it going to include?
So why I think this is going to be a question that a lot of people are going to ask as well, in terms of like, why the 7th and why the 15th? Why can't I get my money now? I want my money now. Well,
yeah.
we're operating in a real world business. It takes time for us to sort of consolidate the numbers in a sense. I'm sure you don't want some hooky numbers or some random numbers that we pull out from our own ass, because we also do need to sort of consolidate the payments. Because when you talk about primary healthcare, you also include insurance payments and stuff like that. So these guys are massive in scale, and they do not follow your timeline. It means, they're supposed to pay you at the end of the month, but then they're not going to pay you at the end of the month, basically. They're going to drag out your payments because that's who they are, that's what they can do. So what happens is that we normally can consolidate our accounts by the second of the following month, because we give and take, like, for example, maybe the 31st or the 1st is a public holiday, or maybe, for example, it's a weekend. So we give ourselves some time to sort of consolidate all the accounts by the second or the third. This gives us sufficient time to sort of write up the report in terms of how all the assets are performing by the 7th. That's when we'll publish basically everything in our Discord. If you hop in, you will see basically the performance and the treasury side of reports. This is where we sort of like drop down in terms of like all of the info. So the report will basically include in terms of like the assets that we hold and how they are performing. We will see how to maybe see if we can break it down further down the road. But as of this time moment, I think as a starting point, until we get the ball rolling, and once things get more smoother, it'll be a bit more consolidated compared to a bit more breakdown. And we'll definitely be happy to take in any community inputs in terms of like you saying like, hey, look, what I want to see. And we'll be happy to include that in the report as well, because at the end of the day, what we do hope is that the reports that we produce when the committee members are flown in for the audits every time, they're able to cross-reference with the actual earnings of the audited statements, so that you know that, look, we are not giving you some random numbers. This was confirmed by a third-party auditor. These are legit companies that also went through our accounts and our bank statements to confirm that, look, this is what is actually showing and this is what they paid out in a sense. So this gives us time after we can consolidate everything to sort of on-ramp the funds into stable coins. So that's why the 15 is when the payout is, because after we consolidate the amount, we can tell, okay, look, on the 7th, we'll tell everyone, look, this is what the participation reward will be, and this is what you'll be getting for the previous month. And we cannot just on-ramp millions of dollars into stable coins quite quickly in that sense, because no one has that level of, I would say, capital for us to sort of transact that immediately in a sense and safely, we would say. So it takes time for us to on-ramp funds again in crypto. So that's why it gives us enough time to fairly pay out everyone. So we do understand that it's a bit shitty in a sense, for lack of a better word, in terms of that feeling, in terms of timeline, because me being in projects as well, I'm like, I want my money now. We hope to reduce that timeline as we slowly ramp up and once we start getting the ball rolling. So if you realize, I like to be very conservative with my numbers. I'm not a guy who will give you like, okay, we're gonna do this then, and then I don't deliver. I only like to give you numbers. I like to be very real with everyone. I like to give you only numbers that I know that I can hit and I can do in that sense. And I give buffer also as well for in case if anything goes wrong in that season as well, in that time.
Yeah, and I love that. Those are sound accounting principles, using conservative numbers as well as leaving yourself a buffer for any kind of margin of error. And then at the end of, your reporting period, if you did well and you were conservative, but you performed better than that, and you also left yourself a margin of error, but there wasn't much error, then all of a sudden your numbers turn out way better than your estimates and projections, and then everybody's happy. Shareholders, stakeholders, everybody. Like it's a good practice for accounting. I like that you do that and you're familiar with those things. I would hope so, with how much experience you have running businesses and portfolios like this. So great. And I am totally cool with the reports being published the 7th the following month, and then rewards being paid out the 15th the following month. Makes a lot of sense, especially if you're dealing with insurance companies that pay out when they feel like it, essentially. So they have a little bit longer of leeway on when they feel like they need to pay out. So that makes sense. And then also rewards being paid out a week after you've published your performance reports makes sense. So that way you actually know the numbers and know how much money to start moving around to pay out to stakers and people in the project. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad you're not just making up numbers. There are some projects out here, man, in DeFi, they just, I swear they're just making up numbers as they go. And I'm just like, that doesn't really make sense, but okay. Like, you just have to take their word for it. I'm glad you're putting a lot of thought and care into this whole transparency and accountability thing, which is very important to me in my community. All right. So I got some other questions here I kind of want to run through. So you don't have a minimum that you have to hit for this business plan to get off the ground. You're like, as it currently stands, you could kickstart this and start, and it would be a slow churn with whatever you guys can manage with, like, but if you guys do the full 8 million hard cap, obviously that's going to be a lot of gasoline, full steam ahead. This thing will be going nuts. And then somewhere in the middle, maybe realistically, so you don't have a minimum though that you need to raise to get this going, right?
No, I don't think we do have a minimum, because in the private rounds already, we've sort of hit the minimum level, just to be transparent with everyone in terms of what we've raised. So I don't see an issue with people seeing our vision, and definitely in terms of like what we are offering here, because what we're offering is sound rewards, no Ponzonomics, and good returns, and stable, and most importantly, stable outcome in a sense. Not an outcome whereby I'm going to worry the next day, like, oh, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen in a sense? And I believe that people will definitely see that in what we are doing here. All
right, great. That makes me feel a little more comfortable that no matter what, even at this point, you guys are able to just get rolling if you wanted to, but now you're just trying to load up the fuel to pour on this fire. Okay, now with the private seed round with your angel investors that's already happened, and actually you said it's still happening for the next 2 weeks for your with the D-Hedge team that you're collaborating with their community, and you're opening up to my community. If I get this video out quick enough, there'll be still a private round going. Do people who buy tokens at the private round price, do they have a vesting period of any kind?
No, so they don't have a vesting period of any kind, because again, we want to reward people who come in at a very early stage to trust us and to believe in us. And I think this is a good roadmap, especially in the whole cryptoverse, because if you come in early, you should be rewarded in terms of being the biggest benefiter, because what happens is that you sort of help us kickstart the whole process behind the scenes in terms of what we need to do, rather than wait for the full pre-sale in a sense. So what the private round has helped us do is helped us jumpstart our whole incorporation, put down some letter of intents with some of the assets that we're looking at. That's why we are very confident in our roadmap to start paying out the rewards sort of in July, which will be paid out in August in a sense. So the July rewards, we are very confident that we can sort of hit those timelines in terms of what we are doing. So because of the private rounds, we are able to sort of like lock in certain assets that we're looking at already, in terms of like, okay, look, we're going to buy you out. Because we have not, it's not like we've been doing nothing behind the scenes. So while the developers are developing on the contracts, tokens, and staking pools and stuff like that, we, in terms of me personally and my business partner, we are behind the scenes already, basically talking to cleaning assets that we're very interested in, doing our duty with them already, so that we have a big enough size to basically kick off the moment we get the funding from the pre-sale. Awesome. That's awesome. You have some targets in your sights, and once that pre-sale raise is done, you're ready to just start acquiring them. Now, obviously, finding those undervalued assets, that's probably pretty valuable information. So I'm guessing the name or addresses of those facilities are kind of
internal to the project and haven't been released yet publicly here?
Yes, correct. They won't be released until we acquire the assets. I think for many good reasons as well. I do not want to like sort of hype like, oh, we are acquiring these assets because the revenue is this, blah, 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 their profits are this. And maybe, for example, at the last minute, at the 11th hour, right before the guy signs the paper, he has a epiphany or he has a word from somewhere and he says, okay, I'm not doing this. That could happen in a sense. So until we sign the dotted lines, we know that we can basically acquire those assets. That's when we'll sort of make the announcements to the community in terms of like, hey, look, this is what we'll get. Obviously, we have to sort of blur out the names and stuff like that, but we'll take pictures and show the insights and all this kind of stuff. But if you're ever in Malaysia, come talk to us. We'll be happy to show anyone around. Obviously, what I mean is that if you're not lucky enough to get on the raffle, feel free to come here yourselves. I'm not going to shut my doors to anyone. You can just hit me up. We arrange a time. We'll bring you a tour around. We'll show you around in terms of what we are doing and everything.
That's awesome. That's a really cool thing to do. So you guys heard John here. If you are in Malaysia and you're visiting, feel free to get a hold of him. And if you are a part of this community, you can go see things for yourself in person. So that's a nice offer to make to the community.
Yeah.
So so I know you said a lot of the funds will immediately be deployed to acquire certain assets and facilities. How else are the funds you're raising going to be allocated?
Okay, so in the meantime, while we are sitting on the cash pool also, in that sense, to basically utilize and to pay out, this is where we see the integration with other projects also really important. And this is where we see the synergy between liquid investments also really important in that sense. So we do have some negotiation done with banks in terms of how we can maybe park some of the assets with them to acquire a stable return on that month, basically a sort of like a special rate fixed deposit in a sense, whereby we can get a special rate to offset the interest rate in terms of what we are needing to pay out in terms of the 1.5%. And also that's why, for example, we're talking to projects like DH in a sense, where DH fund, whereby we can probably see how we can maybe park some of our liquid assets into them for the month being until we need to deploy them down the road. Because one benefit thing about the whole M&A structure and acquiring clinics and assets and these things is I do not necessarily need to pay them a lump sum upfront. Sometimes these assets are happy to do sort of like a payment plan with us as a whole in a sense. So in rather than just pay them out the lump sum, for example, maybe they want to avoid the whole taxation issue. They rather dripped out over like 2 years or 3 years in a sense so that they don't get hit on the biggest tier of tax because they just sold an asset. Okay. So there are many structures where we negotiate these with the asset owners, and we will be sitting on some level of assets. So that's why the treasury report is very important, whereby we can tell people, look, this is what we are doing with the treasury, so because these are basically the liquid funds that we have sitting us at the moment, and what we're doing, we're going to move into supporting other projects whereby. When I mean by other projects, I mean very liquid projects. So these are projects that definitely we need to vet through with the team. And this is where Alex also does a little bit of introduction to me to other guys that saying, look, this is where synergy can happen and we can basically pump our funds with them for a while, and while it grows, then we basically take them out. And at the same time, we'll be able to sustain the 1.5% at the same time. So it's a bit of a balancing act, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a great use of that capital. Not just letting it sit there, obviously having very accessible liquid capital in your own custody is good, but also if you've got some very secure, like traditional finance, like a bank that will allow you to earn some extra yield on it at a decent rate in a deposit that's somewhat secured, then that's also a good way to kind of have it sitting there, making some money while you're also deploying parts of it strategically. And also you looking to put it into some kind of lower risk assets with teams that you have partnered with, like D-Hedge, where they're kind of a more sustainable model in terms of returns and tokenomics and that kind of thing. Now, if you don't, let's. I know you're looking to do 500 million tokens. Are you going to do 500 million tokens, no matter if even if you don't hit the hard caps?
Yeah, for sure. I think because we do believe again in the vision of what we can achieve down the road. I think at the end of the day, our work and what we show people in terms of what we have done will be the biggest testimony in terms of how well our project can do. So we are definitely gearing up for future raises down the road in that sense. So I don't think we will ever reduce that amount. It will just be at the end of the day sitting in the treasury of the wallet.
Okay. And the private sale that happened, you said it was it's currently going on still for the next 2 weeks, and that has a hard cap of $500,000. Is that right?
Yes,
it's not shown here on the white paper, but the private sale for seed round investors is $500,000 raise. And what's the token price what's the discount they're getting?
So right now this time moment, if you get to catch this video quick, the discount is at 90 cents instead of $1. So you're getting a small 10% discount on top of coming in early and getting that airdrop bonus as well.
Very nice. All right, good to know. Now, where will the token trade?
Okay, so this is where we get to an interesting point, because the next question I think a lot of people have is sort of whereby if I have the token now, do I move it into sell it on an LP? Do I sell it on a DEX? Do I sell it somewhere else? What do I do with it in a sense? Let's just say if I want to exit. And after going through many options, Snocky and I sort of came to a conclusion whereby it would not be sustainable for us to sort of put it in an LP in this time of moment, or to go into a SEX or a DEX in this time of moment. Just because we see so many projects starting off early, going into a SEX or a DEX, and you get demolished in terms of the swing traders who come in and sort of like buy in at a low amount or whatever they do, basically to pump the coin and basically to dump your coin. And the next issue is that a lot of our liquidity or treasury reserves will be forced to be deployed in the LP or in the DEX to sort of sustain the price. So what we have decided to do is basically move to a dynamic OTC system. Taking notes from how the bond market sort of works in a sense, our goal is basically to get the token price stable and sustainable in a sense. If you're coming here to find a project whereby the token price will moon in like 50x and 100x, well, it's not going to happen here. I'm going to be very front with you guys. You're looking at a token price where we want to keep it within range. We don't want it to fluctuate too much up and down in that sense. So that's why we wanted to start with an OTC system, whereby it will basically ensure that people who want to sell and people who want to buy are really interested in the project, or maybe they missed the mark, or maybe they wanted to see a bit more of traction in the project before they jump into the pre-sale. They missed the pre-sale, and in between that pre-sale and hard sale, they might want to jump on the OTC and purchase a bit more. Or maybe I've already loaded up on some KERC and I decided, hey, I like where it's going. I want to load up more. So where do I go? I go to the OTC market in that sense. So how we control the OTC market, it's a dynamic OTC market. It's not by, for example, if you put in 1,000 KERC tokens, you need to sell out 1,000 KERC tokens. Someone can maybe buy out 50, someone can maybe buy out 200 from it in that sense until it depletes. So another point would be that how do we then create a system whereby the price is stable, whereby we will create a treasury segment whereby the treasury would daily sell a set amount of KERC tokens at the median price of KERC at the time moment. So what that means is that every couple of hours, we would basically take the average median price for example, if some was sold at 90 cents, some was sold at $1.40. We'll take the median price, and basically the treasury will sell a small amount of KERC at that price to create the floor, so that you understand that at any given moment, if you sell below that floor, you are giving someone else a discount. And that's on your loss. Maybe you want to exit really quickly. That's on you. So obviously, coming back to reality, ideally that would sort of keep the price stable. But we also do understand that sometimes maybe there might be just a bit more sell pressure where some people would say, screw this, I just want to sell it at 10 cents and we're not going to stop you. That is a massive discount to someone else at the end of the day. I don't see a problem with that, because at the end of the day, you are selling it to someone else, or maybe down the road, the protocol will sort of do the buybacks from the OTC at that level of discount. And that basically is a win for everyone overall. Because the key thing here is that we basically want to push away any swing traders, and we want to basically not entice any person who's coming here to sort of dump on us, because this goes in line with what we want to do future down the road in terms of the utilization of the tokens. So should I just jump into that component?
Yeah, let me see if I can if I understand the OTC market correctly. So in my understanding from what you said is it kind of gives you a way to help stabilize the price to prevent wild fluctuations from swing traders and arbitrage bots and things like that on a DEX, while also allowing you to keep the price within range easier, so that way the rewards being paid out are more consistent with what you guys are estimating and want to do. And also it gives you kind of a middle ground with liquidity of assets. So it's not as fully crazy liquid as a DEX, and it's not as illiquid as an NFT. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, where you have a middle ground of liquidity where it might not sell right away, but you can sell in batches of however many you want. You can buy whatever's on the market and kind of get in and get out if you're, a little more patient. But if you put it at a steep discount, you'll probably get your position bought out very quickly. So I think it's like a middle ground of liquidity between a DEX and an NFT, and OTC is kind of right somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's very well put in a sense. It is sort of the best middle ground we can to create a stable price action in a sense, because I think Alex and I was discussing earlier. So because even if you go into a project that pays you 1 to 2% per day, if the price per token constantly drops maybe about 60%, you still need to hold that token for maybe another 20 days to recoup that loss, and in the meantime, while you're waiting for that 20 days, the price is still going downwards. So it's a good balance, I would say, to avoid that whole swing trader situation whereby once you get this arbitrary bots to basically start bleeding you to death in a sense, it's just a healthier system overall for everyone.
Yeah, and that's one of the many games we play out here in DeFi in liquidity farming is like, are you outpacing impermanent loss with the rewards you're getting from your staking position in your liquidity farm? And that's, a lot of people think they're making money, but they're losing money. And at the end of like a few months, they're like, wait a sec, why is my total capital down? I don't understand. And they didn't map out this part on the chart when they bought in, and the price is now down here over that period of time. If they're getting 1 or 2% rewards per day, does that outpace the decline in price of the capital that you have staked at that final point in time? Not many people are doing those calculations. I've got spreadsheets for all that stuff, so I'm kind of more in the loop on those silly games we play out here and try to develop strategies to win or to be profitable, I guess, with my liquidity that I'm lending out. And I like that this kind of eases that process, so that way if there's a somebody exits really fast, a huge position, it doesn't tank everybody's value. Essentially, it's more of like a peer-to-peer kind of like, well, I'm still fully in on this. I'll take your price and buy that, add to my bag at a major discount, and then everybody else is better off for it. Now, I did want to cover this part right here before we jump into what you're about to say. That price is every month you were going to determine the par price that the fixed monthly stablecoin 1.5% rewards are paid out on. So it says here, on a fixed monthly basis, KERC will reward staked tokens with 1.5% of the par token price paid out in stablecoins every month. And that par token price will be determined every month based on the average trading price for that previous month, right?
Correct. That will be correct. So that is one of the key reasons why we need to ensure that we keep the price stable, because I don't think anyone likes to get a less reward in terms of whatever you already are staked in. So if we can keep the price stable and we deploy methods to do that, it's a big win for everyone overall in a sense. You just have to be a little bit patient.
And you will be injecting some of your, like, the company profits? You're saying 80% of like what would essentially be going to retained earnings otherwise. You're saying 80% of that will be actually going to support the rewards here and the price of the token. Is that right?
Correct. So normally in any traditional assets, you sort of want to retain about 60 to 70% of your earnings within the company, and you only want to keep in deploying whatever coverage you can for the whole year, because you never know when you need to upgrade your assets 5 years down the road in a sense. So that's basically good accounting. But in terms of how explosive we are growing, and because of how we are raising funds instead of growing traditionally, we are able to ensure that, say, look, we believe our track record will speak for itself. We are going to deploy a majority of all our profits back to the investors to get them to ROI way quicker, so that it's the best kind of track record that we can have, so that we can move forward to the next raise and acquire more assets in a sense. So don't think that basically these two raises are the last ones that we're doing. We're definitely going to do more down the road, but we are not going to give the same level of airdrop bonuses as well, because we believe the moment we start showing track record, people will see, hey, look, this is not fake. We're actually rewarding people back. There's no scam in this, and they like to hop on, because I think as long as we can outpace a bank's fixed deposit or the stock market, I think we're quite in a good position in a sense, and people will see the value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with that being said, so the fixed rewards can, it's 1.5% fixed to the par price that is determined from the previous month's average trading price. So the 1.5% could fluctuate based on the token price, and so could the profit participation percentage bonus and airdrop. And then you have additional airdrop tokens. Now that 80% of the company profits that goes back to supporting these rewards, does that just go into additional percentage here for profit participation and additional airdrop tokens, or do you do any kind of like buying back of the actual token itself to support the price to keep the rewards? If we're getting 1.5% of the price of the average of last month, are you doing something with that 80% of the profits to bring that price back up, so that way our 1.5% is as good as it was when we first started?
Yes, for sure. So I think one thing that we didn't cover, so that we're good to cover now, is that when you de-stake your pool early on, there is a small penalty in a sense. It will be a decreasing level of penalty. As of this time moment, it will start at 40% and we will start reducing as the months go by. So that we do know that, for example, you have an emergency that you need the funds, you need to de-stake, you need to sell your position, and you need to get out. And that's fine by us. We understand that things can happen and things can go wrong. And because of that decrease in payout that we need to give, it's easy for us to sort of like manage that buybacks that we need to do, or we need to basically sort of stabilize the price. So that's what the treasury and we call it the war chest of what we are creating will sort of help do as well. But obviously in the earlier months, we don't want to deploy and utilize our capital in that sense, in that manner. So it will be on a very, I would say, not community choice basis, but on a management side choice basis. So definitely we will seek our advisors. We will basically have a meeting to discuss, okay, look, should we do it? Or in the sense of, should we surprise the community by helping push up the price so that people get more rewards at the end of the day? And this will be definitely a case-by-case basis.
Okay, good to know. Now, is the 40% early emergency unstaking fee from your staking position if somebody has locked it up for 3, 6, or 12 months, they decide to exit early? You said there's a 40% fee right now, and you might have a degrading scale for that, depending on how long you've already staked. Now, that 40% emergency unstake fee for early unstaking, is that the only fee in the system, or are there any other taxes or fees that we should know about on the token or staking pools?
Yeah, so that would be the only fee in terms of the whole staking component, because we don't see the need to charge you or to tax anyone in terms of anything. Like, there's no point in doing any of that. There's no buy fee. There's no sell fee. But what we do have in the OTC system is there will be a service percentage fee. The reason why is because the OTC system, to create a dynamic system like this, takes a lot of different, I would say, according to our developers, a lot of different servers and settings that we need to take into account. And to keep those afloat, especially when you have issues, and we do see there will be issues because no smart contracts is going to come out but clean the first go, in a sense. You will definitely have a lot of issues with bugs and stuff like that. So to sustain that system and to bring in maybe 1 or 2 developers to sort of help iron out the bugs and stuff like that would take money in terms of cost. So ideally, we want to create a system whereby it sort of can pay for itself. So that's why the service fee would be there. And right now, we don't have an answer into what the percentage will be, but it won't be a crazy, like, above like 5% or some shit like that. It will be a very small amount to ensure that we can use this fee to sort of like keep the system going and the system churning. So that goes, I guess you can tell by now, I'm a person who likes to keep things simple and keep things running smoothly. and I like to stabilize everything. I don't like crazy wow things that I can't expect or can't predict, in a sense.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, you'll potentially have some trading fees on the OTC marketplace to support the server costs, domain hosting, and everything, and development costs for the OTC itself. So you don't have to maybe pull funds from the medical facility side of the business for operational expenses on the DeFi OTC market expenses. So you're going to have that kind of separate. And you said you're going to have probably no more than 5% total fees. So would that be like 2.5% on the buy side, 2.5% on the sell side, or something like that in the max case scenario? But if you can get away with doing it much less, you said you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So like an example could be 0.5% or 1% on the buy and 0.5% or 1% on the sell side, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. That will be along the lines, because definitely we want to push the price as low as possible. That's the goal and that's the idea behind it. But we want to be transparent and tell people as well, like, look, there is operational cost to all these services that we do provide, in a sense. Yes, we do understand that it's probably the only means that you can sort of use to exit, but I don't think it'll be fair to incur those costs on the other people who have trusted and decided to stay within the system, in that sense. So these costs should be kept to a minimal, and I think it will be minimal in that sense. It's just that at this time moment, while we are basically getting the contracts audited and the systems ironed out, we want to be able to give a correct answer. I don't want to give a number and like just snowball a number out there, in a sense. I like to be concise and precise with my numbers when I do provide them.
And an interesting, I guess I always try to see the silver lining of these things from a trader's perspective. A silver lining here is it actually creates a tighter spread on the buy and sell of the order book of the OTC market, because if you have somebody trying to manually arbitrage, buying at a discount and then selling them at a premium to make a little bit of a spread there, that little bit of a percent kind of makes it harder for people to arbitrage. So that way you don't have people just trying to flip this thing all day and like buy at a discount and then sell it higher to take advantage of those price discrepancies. So that's kind of a silver lining for somebody who might actually be looking to buy a discount, that it won't just get eaten up by an arbitrage trader who just sits on the OTC all day trying to
Yeah,
flip bags, basically.
yeah, that's definitely a very good point as well.
Mhm. Cool, awesome. Now, this is something I saw people asking in Discord. Will patients be able to use KERC tokens to pay for medical services? And if so, what benefits will they receive if they do?
Yeah, so that's definitely a very good question. And I think that's where I was leading into from the previous conversation that we were having. Um, the reason why we went into a token rather than a node project or an NFT is that the utilization, as I spoke before earlier, and patients who sort of are within our ecosystem and our facility, we basically can give them the option to start introducing different systems into the DeFi world, into the traditional world. So what that means is that with the payment gateway systems that we currently have, because Southeast Asia is quite a card-friendly country, you basically use a debit card or credit card anywhere you go. We have payment terminals. Even if you go to the street market and stuff like that, they have payment terminals where you can utilize and stuff like that. We will already in sort of like in talks with some of the people in the Lightning Network, whereby how we can allow patients to utilize their credit card or their debit card to basically pay in KERC tokens immediately on the in the site in the facility once you proceeded with your healthcare. So how that works is that we are going to offer it to our patient and say, look, this is the amount of fee you need to pay today. You can either pay in fiat or would you like to pay in KERC? And if you do pay in KERC, in that sense, you will get maybe a 10% discount on the total fee or some form of maybe additional benefits down the road, how we're going to structure it. Because it will be in our incentive also to eventually create a sort of like a digital passport system for our patients when we start scaling. These are some of like the alphas that I'm sort of like dripping in a sense of like how or what we see ourselves doing in the future. So because of that, immediately this purchase of KERC tokens from fiat would add more buy pressure immediately into the tokens to sort of supplement whatever systems we already have in place. How this system is going to go about, whether it's going to directly buy more tokens immediately from the treasury, is another reason why we have a larger treasury in the sense of the 500 million, or it's going to be mixed hybrid to basically buy out the remaining OTC market things, is something that we are still looking of how we can integrate, because this is definitely an idea that we know is doable. It's just how it's going to be done in a very seamless way, because at the end of the day, the traditional guys don't care and don't want to know anything else about KERC. Maybe it might pique their interest down the road in terms of like, hey, I've been using this for a while, what is this? Then they might see the benefit in that. But in that time and moment at the point of sale, they just want to pay and just want to go. And for me, since we are already controlling all of the assets, it won't be a problem to introduce this as an option to people whereby, hey, discount, and they'll probably do that. And it will work in the benefit of the community as a whole, because now instead of just waiting for every raise to basically get a fresh injection of funds towards the token price action, you are constantly getting basically buy pressure on your token on a daily basis.
That's awesome. So people will potentially, once you guys have rolled this out, you're trying to have it so that way when people use their card at your point of sale at any of your facilities, they'll be able to have an option to either buy in KERC, to pay in KERC token at point of sale with and get a discount potentially or some other benefits, or they can use their whatever local fiat currencies they usually do. If they use the KERC, it'll go through a series of accounting with you guys, since you control all the assets, and basically take KRC tokens from the treasury, or exchange them with whatever they're paying in, and then at some point you'll have like a rebalancing where you'll take whatever's in like has built up in the treasury for that day, and the next day maybe use the fiat currencies that they use from their card, and you'll basically sweep the floor of the OTC market or something, or start buying batches off there at the lowest price, sweeping the floor, and then putting those tokens into the treasury. Did I understand like that's possibly how it might work?
Yes, that is a possibility of how it might work. But because of how the limitations of the Lightning Network works in this time and season, there's a lot of issues with the security systems and how it functions as a whole. I'm not able to give you. That's why this is a future thing down the road, whereby we probably aim to release it by the Q1 of 2024, because there's a lot of things we need to sort of iron out. Because now you're not only infringing on the whole Web3 and DeFi space, you are also integrating with Visa and Master in terms of like how you go about this, the route of payment basically as a whole, without creating too much of a hassle, I would say, in the whole.
Right. Yeah. So that'll be interesting if you guys pull that off. I know a lot of projects talk about having like brick and mortar ability to use your tokens to buy this or that, and having, buy pressure through point of sale, and none of them that I've ever talked to have ever owned facilities. They don't actually have brick and mortar assets to do this with, but if you guys are in control of all these assets and facilities, you might have a little bit more leeway and control over rolling something out like a customized point of sale system that you can work with your payment processors and providers and everything like that. So interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. I hope you guys pull it off. I will be very impressed if and when you do, okay?
Thank you. I think we can do it.
Well, hey, I believe you can do it. So now, real quick, how can you claim rewards? So you said rewards are paid out on like the 15th of each month. How do you actually go about claiming them?
Yeah, so as of this time moment, the staking reward systems will sort of work in a way where you have to click a claim button in that sense. This is still sort of subject to change because of how the staking contract will work. Because I'm just being upfront, the staking contract is still in its final form. That's why it's only going to be released, as you see in our roadmap down the road. It's not going to be released immediately. It's still being worked behind the scenes because they are still some limitations to how Arbitrum will work and how much team member we have. Because right now in this time moment, I'll be very honest with you guys and say that we only have one main developer working in hand. He's getting some help somewhere, I hope. But he's just one really super hardworking guy, and I'm sure in a sense of like you've seen his work and how good and how quick he is. So working on that is just about ironing the kinks out about how we go about that, which is a very simple process. It's just that I don't want to give you an answer that is a definite answer until I also have worked out that with him. But as of now, the concept will be that you'll be able to just click. If you're not able to just click and get your rewards out, we will just basically airdrop it to you. So it'll be just one way or another.
Okay, so most likely you'll just go to the staking website and you'll just click claim rewards. Will people have the option to compound rewards back into their staking positions?
Yes, they would be.
So in that case, they would have like either a claim rewards button or a compound button?
Correct. So in the earlier stages, before we introduce more a variation of staking pools, it will be just as simple as that. You can basically stake or you can basically compound. It's up to you.
Okay, good to know. And if I don't claim, is there like a time period where I'm forced to claim? Like you have to claim between the 15th and the 20th each month, or if you don't claim this month, no. It auto compounds back into your position, like, or does it just build up there and then you claim or compound as normal?
Yes, it just builds up there. So that regardless of which we do airdrop or not, if you do not choose to restake, because your rewards are there for you for the taking, as long as you're staked. So unless you're not staked, then yeah.
Good to know. Okay. Awesome. So is there a minimum or maximum staking period?
So the minimum staking period is 3 months. The maximum staking period is 12 months.
Okay.
And in between, there's a 6-month option.
Got it. All right. And let's see. Do you guys have any way to prevent a bank run on your token. I know the OTC kind of helps with that. Is that your main way to prevent something like that?
Yeah, so the OTC is one of the key methodologies of how we avoid a bank run, because this gives us enough time to either sweep the floor, or maybe someone else would buy out your position. So we do not need to sort of liquidate our assets. But in the, I don't know, 1 in a billion moment, because I can't say there's never going to be issues. If there is going to ever be issues in a sense, and there is going to be a high demand of refunds and stuff like that, that's why the breaking of the staking of the 40% sort of gives us a leeway to liquidate assets as well. Because as you know, traditional assets are not that easy to liquidate in a sense. You still need to find a buyer, and I would probably need to sell it at a massive discount. So that's why the staking penalty needs to be in place as well, because if ever there's a worst case scenario that I do need to liquidate my assets, that will sort of help me balance off that loss.
Okay, and speaking of which, how leveraged is this new business currently in terms of bank loans or private loans or anything like that? And if so, do you have a plan to deleverage your position over time?
Yeah, so the project is clean, it's fresh. So that's why we're incorporating new companies to help support the whole structure and infrastructure of this whole asset holdings. So it'll be a clean slate. There's no leverage, there's no lending, there's no borrowing. So everything in a sense of whatever we raise and we utilize will be within the whole own ecosystem. And I think that's the most cleanest and easiest way that we can create transparency. We do not need to report anything different to anyone. We're going to report things as it is. The only compliance that we need to deal with is the compliance of the country, the regulators, and obviously the compliance of transparency to our investors.
Got it. Now, will you potentially will, though, when you acquire assets, you might work out creative deals with the clinic owners that you are buying their facilities from, or whatever facilities you're looking at, and you're potentially going to use to leverage debt to just make a down payment essentially on an acquisition. So that way you can buy it over time for their tax benefit, essentially, so they don't get wrecked by a massive tax burden in 1 year. So you might be buying in increments, and in which case you would essentially be, getting a loan or mortgage type of situation on some of these acquisitions. So in that case, would you be leveraging debt at a, beneficially, because then you have this extra capital sitting here to acquire more assets quicker, which is the goal here, is for you to scale your already working business model, and also to put some of that extra cash to work, generating additional revenue from your banks or other partners to help also fuel some of these rewards as well. Is that true?
Yes, that would be the idea, because as we know, any money sitting there and not being worked upon is basically dead money, and we do not want to have to deal with that. So that's why we need to make sure that whatever deal structures we do, if we do have the benefit of saving that upfront cost, we definitely going to make sure that we work those money first, and at the end of the day, the shareholders or the investors, in a sense, in this field will benefit the most from it.
Now, in that case, if you are, structuring deals like this, where you're putting a little bit down up front to acquire these assets immediately and start owning them and putting them to work on your books, how far are you comfortable with leveraging that type of debt to expand your portfolio as fast as possible? Do you have some ratio that you use? Like, you're okay having like 5 times the amount of debt for these deals to how much assets you have on hand at the time? What are your metrics there? Do you have anything like that?
So I would not say that I'm the biggest fan of leveraging of my assets like this because number one, I'm not utilizing sort of like the own earnings within my companies. I do have a fiduciary duty to sort of make sure that I pay out the rewards to all our stakeholders and our investors in this early stage. So I do not like to leverage myself in any form. I rather make those money work for me than and keep that money aside to ensure that as the payment plan comes to a close, I have that full ability to cover off that loan. I do not want to get to a point where maybe I go into borrowing out that fund or something like that to something risky. And then now I'm worrying about, oh no, how am I going to cover that hole? I think we've definitely learned a lot from the whole Three Arrow Capital mistakes and all these crypto VC mistakes whereby they leveraged the hell out of themselves and they got themselves in big trouble when the cash call starts coming in. And I don't think that is a position I want to put myself in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's always a good question to ask is, you know, what's your debt tolerance level and what level of exposure are you comfortable with your capital expansion strategy? A lot of people run entire real estate businesses doing this, and it is high risk, high reward type stuff. And I like that you mentioned fiduciary responsibility is something I appreciate. So no, that's good that you're not putting yourself in a position where if a deal or two goes sideways, that all of a sudden, oh, everything's insolvent and the house of cards collapses, right? No, that's good. So when you are looking to acquire an asset, even if you're only, say it's like a deal over 5 years, and you only have, and it's a $100,000 facility, so you get a real deal on one of these, and it's over 5 years, $20,000 a year or something, and you only need to put $20,000 towards it that first year. Do you just keep that other 80,000 like in a separate kind of account where it's like it's there in case you need to buy it all out immediately, or do you put it in like the bank to earn some interest on it, or you don't use that to like make another down payment on another acquisition, right?
Yeah, so we won't be using any of that to make a down payment on any other asset. I think the moment we lock in a certain price point is when we sort of would use that, for example, like you said, the 80,000 balance that we have to maybe put in a more very safe fixed location whereby we know that there won't be any issues at the given time moment where we do need to take out those funds. I think it would be very irresponsible of us to sort of take that money and sort of like gamble it in another project or another thing to hope that, oh, maybe we can make 2x our money and all our investors will be happy. Well, yeah, they will be happy, but at the end of the day, if I lose your money, then you'll be unhappy. So I think the tone for this whole project will go as the same. Like if you try to push me towards any like risky stuff, I'm like, look, I'll be risky myself in any crypto project I go into. But right now, because I'm managing a lot under asset, and I want to make sure that everything is done properly and right. In a sense, I think everyone has had enough of very risky and degen projects out there. When you come to us, this is what you're going to get. Stable and safe. We're not going to risk anything. We're not going to play any fun. If you want anything, high rewards, high risk, there are a lot of projects for you out there to sort of work that into your game. So if you want something stable, safe, and you know we're not going to muck around with your funds, this is where you come to.
All right, good to know. And so in that case, like you would basically you're buying these assets with cash on hand, like full price. You've got the cash for it to just make the purchase. If they want to do it piecemeal year by year for tax purposes, would you put that in like a legal or a bank escrow deal with them where it pays out like 20 grand each year? You don't even have to touch it or worry about it, and it's not really accessible to your fingertips at that point for your business expenses. You couldn't like dip into it if you wanted to. Technically, that business owner that sold it to you guys is guaranteed that rest of that money's coming. And even though you only need to pay them 20,000 up front first year, the other 80,000's in an escrow account that pays them out automatically, trustless, kind of, you know, through banks and lawyers and all that. Is that something you guys would employ?
Definitely, maybe on some, but I think what would be better for us, because you see, if we put it in an escrow account or a automated debit system, the money is sort of locked with the banks, and the banks are basically using my money now to go make more money on themselves. So that would be silly of us to sort of allow that to happen. That's why I say that we probably have to look at more liquid, safe returns, even if it's at a lower amount. As long, because the moment I purchase an asset, I consider that money used in a sense. Anything I can do additional with that money is a benefit to the community as a whole at the end of the day. Because I think one thing also we didn't go really across over is that the team members, we do get a benefit. We basically incorporated to say, look, if we perform better for that couple of months, we do get an incentivized in terms of additional salaries for ourselves. And that's definitely what I want to do as well. So it's in our incentive at any given moment to push back as much reward as we can to the community. And we want to ensure that the community knows that we are going to do this and we are committed to this as well.
Okay, good to know. So you'll put that to work in the safest places you can think of, and then use that to maximize rewards for everybody, including you guys, who you guys have kind of a performance bonus structure here as well, which that's actually one of my questions. How is the team compensated by the protocol while we're on that topic?
Yeah, so the team is compensated in terms of a salary, a fixed salary every month in a sense, because let's be real, I'm not doing this for free. Everyone sort of needs to basically get paid out. I think that's fair in terms of what our salary would be. So we will basically release our operational costs in terms of the whole team salary, once our overheads in the report as well on the 7th. This will all be included as well. And I think we'll be very transparent in terms of like how much we're taking from the pool. We can track our wallets. We don't have an issue with any of that. And yeah, like basically this is to show you that, look, we are working for you. We're not here to basically run away with whatever, in a sense of like small amount we have. It's in our incentive to basically perform better for you guys. Then we get an additional bonus. I think it's fair in the sense of, if I were into any other project and if the project leads basically sort of rewards themselves if the project does really well.
No, that's actually my favorite type of compensation structure. It's mutually incentivized, because if we're all here to make money at the end of the day, you're not building a project for free. Nobody does that. If they do, I just question what's going on, really, because they're going to be making their money from it some other way that you don't know about, which I think is more dangerous and risky for the participants. I'd rather know how you guys are compensating yourselves, and I would say, oh, okay, with this kind of structure, I like it, because that means you guys are highly motivated to be as successful as possible, which benefits all the participants as well as yourselves. And nobody can, I don't really see how anybody can get mad at that. So no, that's great. So here is the team-based incentives. And then also you guys have the team tokens as well, with a 12-month vesting period. So you have some equity in the form of tokens in the project too, which also is a similar kind of mutually incentivized strategy, especially when you have that vesting period of 12 months. That shows you have a long-term belief in this thing. So, okay, great. Now, let's see. I've got a couple other questions real quick. What is your maximum risk exposure, just in general here? Just you and your business here, KERC. What is your maximum risk exposure that you will face with this business plan?
I think the biggest issues that will arise, and I would say the biggest risk, because no business is without any issues or risks, would be I wouldn't say mitigated, because the biggest issues that can arise from handling healthcare assets would be, obviously, as we covered before, number one, there are some major skeletons under the closet when we purchase an asset that we don't know about. There would be a lot of legal issues that will come about. We might have to turn down the deal, sort of restructure it in a sense of how we can maybe get back the funds from it, or liquidate it as soon as possible, or some way or form of another of how we can get rid of that bad apple in a bunch of apples. Because when you buy a basket of apples, often you're going to have a bad one. Yeah. The other risk factors would definitely be in terms of the human resources. People will probably ask in terms of, you're running a very large operation. How are you going to handle this level of human resources? The benefit is that during the whole pandemic, when we were running these operations, we have got in contact with a large number of personnel and people who are basically in our Rolodex, lack of better words, to sort of call at any given moment in time to bring into the team and to build this up for us. And the last, I think the major one would be the extreme component of, let's just say, if given an asset gets hit by lightning, gets fire, theft, and all those sort of things, the benefit is that that's what the insurance are for in that sense. So I don't see any loss in that component. If, for example, one of the healthcare facilities got burned down, that's why that you have insurance for to cover the damages and stuff like that. So I would say the biggest risk exposure would be our deployment of capital. That I'm going to circle back to that, because that would be honestly the biggest issue, because we are committed to pay the fixed rate a month. And if we do not deploy the capital efficiently quick enough, we will not be able to generate enough returns. And I don't see that as the major issue, again, because we are very conservative in terms of what we project to be in the 1.5%. And we are very confident we can acquire those assets quick enough and turn those assets quick enough around to get to a very good and healthy rewards level.
So, your business plan's biggest risk exposure is where deployment of capital not performing as expected, potentially because of bad apples, unforeseen circumstances, things like that. Now, are there any specific metrics or ratios you look for when targeting a new clinic or facility for acquisition?
Yeah, so definitely in terms of the whole clinic scale, we definitely look at the whole. I would say there's a general ground level of PE ratios of what we look at in terms of the market for healthcare but not in healthcare, in any sector of businesses. And there's a level of comfortable matrix that we would want to use. The sad thing is that I can't give you a certain matrix that we use for all our assets, because I guess that's where sort of like the secret sauce lies in terms of acquiring these assets, because everyone values their assets very differently. And you gotta put a gun to their head to sort of get them to pick one, because a lot of people, I would say, sadly, are not well versed in the whole market. And especially when the owners are normally doctors who sort of don't have a finger on sort of how the market works and stuff like that. And they will sort of just throw a number out in the park and say, okay, look, this is how much I think it's worth. So we sort of need to work with them to say, okay, look, these are some of the example of models that we would use to evaluate a clinic. Which do you think is comfortable for you? And then we sort of work our way from there to say, look, okay, this is what your neighbor is probably going to be worth at. This is what you are asking for. Now, do we seem like we're being fair here? And we sort of need to work that way. So that's why I say it takes a while to sort of acquire assets. That's why when we say we do 3 to 5 assets per month, in the background, we're probably talking to easily about 20 assets at any given moment. And we're still negotiating with them, because it takes some time to get them to a point where they understand what is the market rate and what they're comfortable with in terms of evaluation. Because at the end of the day, it's also a free market, so everyone can value their assets at any given value. But obviously, once we go through their books, we need to bring them back down to earth. Like, okay, I know you heard a lot about all this information out there, but you gotta be real and you gotta be realistic with us. So you gotta work with us here. You can't ask for that kind of pricing because it just doesn't make sense. So this is where we sort of need to negotiate and take time to sort of hold them through the whole journey as well.
Okay, good to know. And I understand that is part of the secret sauce that you guys have for finding and acquiring undervalued assets that you can turn into profitable ones. Okay, so I guess my next question kind of falls in line with that statement. So the S&P 500, as we talked about, does 10% gain per year on average. So how are you able to offer more than that, and is it sustainable?
It's definitely sustainable because we do not take a big chunk of the profits to keep within ourselves. Most major corporate companies do not push out their dividends completely to their shareholders, because that would be, number one, obviously corporate suicide, because you won't have cash flow towards the next month. And also the big boys got to make some money. The biggest stakeholders got to make some money. So that's where most of the profits are always going to be pushed out, because that's why there's different tiers in terms of class shares. You got your preference, you got your public shares and stuff like that, but we won't go into that. So us being a fresh company, and we are not at the level where we are public yet, we do not have that level of requirements to sort of retain earnings or to basically appease big boys. So that's why me and my other founders, we are taking a fair base salary based on the amount we've raised. And whatever that we make in terms of profits, instead of retaining it completely, we are pushing it out very heavily into all our stakeholders. We do not need to comply with a public company's duty to say like, oh, there's only a maximum amount of dividends you can pay out a year before it becomes a tax issue. So that would be our benefit in this time, and the reason why we can push out so much of that rewards out back to our stakeholders.
All right. Good to know. So you're able to do that because we've talked about your profitability numbers, and with even after team salaries and everything like that, you're still well above that 10%, even on your conservative side of things at 15 to 20%, and at your target of 50 to 60, and your average of 30 to 40% per year. All right. This is interesting. Do you guys plan to go cross-chain?
It's in the pipelines. You can hear more about it in our Discord maybe one day when Snorkify is ready to disclose it to you guys. But definitely it's in the works. That's all I can say.
Cool. That's exciting. And do you have any other partnerships right now? And if so, can you explain how those partnerships benefit KERC?
So currently we are directly partner with the DH Fund community in that sense. And we are definitely opening up to more communities as well as we go about this. There's definitely another community that we're in talks with to see how we can bridge across them. But until it is set in stone, I won't drop their names, or I won't reveal who they are at this time and season. But definitely this is something that we're working towards, because I believe that we are moving towards a sustainable pace and a sustainable project scope within the whole ecosystem of DeFi. And it would be definitely in our benefit to sort of work with different ecosystems to provide them maybe even some form of stability, and they scratch our back, we scratch theirs in that sense.
All right, cool. And so where does the name KERC come from?
So that's a real interesting story. So originally we wanted to go off the acronym of the ERC20 token, because that is basically the concept for smart contract tokens, and we can't use crypto ERC because obviously it's taken and that's too generic in a sense. So the next best thing would be to play around with the C and change it to a K. So crypto ERC. So that's where the whole KERC component comes from, because this sort of helps us play this game where when we go to traditional fund managements and stuff like that, they'll be able to oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, I've heard about this ERC20 stuff and stuff like that. So it's a little wordplay in the sense that we came up up with that we thought would be real fun with all the guys.
All right, cool. So KERC stands for crypto with a K, ERC. Awesome. And what do you think is the best way for participants to make the most money with KERC?
So in this time moment, I would say to jump in early and stay for 12 months. Whether you choose to compound your rewards, it's up to you. But the beneficiary here in terms of with the airdrop tokens is that we'll probably get you to a ROI in month 11 to 12, because based on the airdrop amount you'll be getting, it will bring you to close about in month 11 to 12, you'll be getting close to about 200% in terms of APY on a very conservative scale. And because of that, your rewards would you probably have already rigged in about 100% of your initial investment by then. Because as I said, we wanted to make sure that we committed to the 6 to 7% per month. And this is where roughly you sort of reach your ROI point.
Okay, good to know. And there was an interesting spreadsheet posted by a community member and moderator in the Discord here. So I would check that out. And also keep in mind, this is making the assumption of fixed token value price. So obviously, as we talked about, the par value of the token price can fluctuate each month as based on the OTC market and the average trading price for the previous month. So keep that in mind when you're looking at some of these projections and kind of factor that in. Now, I know you've looked over this, John, and we won't dive too deep into this because spreadsheets explaining them over a podcast or a YouTube video can get boring and dry. But is this accurate, or is there or what do you think about this?
I would say this is definitely a fair and safe assumption to sort of make, given that the price point of, even if you take out the participation rewards and move it down to zero, I think you would sort of see like there is a definite high rate of return in terms of how we are choosing to reward our early stakeholders. So if you start factoring in the variable rates of participation rewards, then you start seeing this sort of take off. So this would be like Alex said, it's a bit of I wouldn't say it's a Lambo calculator level, but it sort of gives you an idea in terms of like where you can get to in a sense with this project.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not a conservative estimate by any means, because it's assuming that the token value remains at launch price the entire time. And so I would factor that in, and then also try balance that out with the performance rewards that you guys, if you're hitting your numbers and beyond, there are additional performance rewards. So it's kind of a trickier thing to project over time, but this gives you an idea of fixed numbers, what it can look like, and you can kind of start from there to start making your own calculations and projections and things like that. Cool, man. So the best way for participants to make the most money, you think, is to get in early, as early as possible with either the private or pre-sale, and then stake for 12 months to get the maximum boosted staking rewards.
Yep.
All right. Now I want to talk about the team a bit here. Let me go to your LinkedIn here. Look at this handsome fellow, John Lim. Now, have you ever worked on any other projects before, John? DeFi projects?
No. So I'm a very big investor into DeFi projects. I guess the cat's out of the bag now. But I've never started any crypto projects or DeFi projects. This would be our first foray into it. It took easily at least 5 to 6 months to sort of solidify the whole concept and the whole business plan, because to marry the both of the crypto side and the DeFi side was not an easy thing that we could come about, and to factor in a lot of the numbers and be conservative about what we can and cannot achieve definitely took us some time. So this project was sort of born from me being an investor into a lot of DeFi projects with our main developer Snockify, and we decided, look, we want to create a project that will finally give a win to our investors and to create a sustainable win, not a moon project like crazy returns and high risk in that sense.
All right. So you haven't worked on any other projects or launched any other projects. This is your first project. where you're in the driver's seat, but you have been a DeFi degen like me and our mutual friend Snorky Pie for quite some time. So you know the lay of the land quite well as a participant. Now, who else is on the core team, and what countries is everybody from?
So currently there are 3 people on the core team. It'll be Snorky Pie, me and my business partner. Two of us, my business partner and I, are mainly from Southeast Asia, and Snorky Pie is from Sweden, if I'm not wrong. But currently he's in Romania. I don't know if I should say that, but I'm just saying.
No, that's accurate. So that's good to know. And are any of the team members KYC'd or publicly doxed? And if they're KYC'd, by whom?
So I'm fully doxed now. You can see who I am, what I've done and what I'm doing currently in a sense. But all Snorky Pie also is probably fully doxed because his profile is up in public. You can search him up. You can find his full name and all of that information. But all 3 of us, the founders, will be KYC by solid proof. So we'll get that done as soon as the first initial 3 audits are done. So it will get released together in a sense with that, because we needed to wait for the last incorporation documents so that we can link that, because in KYC we need to release everything. So that's why we need to make sure that the incorporation documents are there, the names align with who we are as a people, our addresses and all this kind of stuff. So that's why that will have to fall in line maybe by next week.
All right, sounds good. And how so solid proof is doing your KYC, and the majority of the team is publicly doxed, and then all 3 founders will be getting KYC'd by solid proof once the final company registration documents get back to you, and that should be in the next week. Now, who developed your smart contracts?
So Snorky Pie developed everything in this time of season. He is a really good developer, fast and efficient, one of the best in the field, I would say. So yeah, he's our main guy.
Yep, he is a highly distinguished software engineer, and I know he even runs teams of software engineers and database administrators. So he's got a lot of technical experience there, hands-on. So that's really cool that he's developing your smart contracts. Are those smart contracts going to be audited, and if so, by whom?
Yeah, so all of our smart contracts are going to be audited by solid proof, because I would say they're one of the more reasonable ones in terms of timelines. Maybe down the road, we might look into the bigger boys like Certic and stuff like that. But because their waitlist is right now, as of the last I contacted them, about 6 to 11 months.
Oh, no.
I don't think we can wait that long. So that's why we went with a more reputable guy in this season, which is solid proof.
And I've read dozens of solid proof audits. They're very high quality. I think they're very good audits. So do you have any multi-sigs on your smart contracts or wallets?
Yes. So all of our smart contracts and wallets will be linked to a multi-sig, and basically it'll be the core team and our advisors, and also probably 1 or 2 members of the community members. So once we start the ball rolling, when we get more people into the Discord, then we maybe open up a poll to say, okay, look, maybe you guys can vote for someone that you guys can trust, or someone well-known within the community, in a sense, that you can trust to be on the multi-sig. And that's where we probably put that person as well on the multi-sig, because again, we believe in full transparency. We don't intend to hide anything, and we're happy to put a community member on board, so that anytime there's a movement of funds, that guy knows, and he knows that we are not going to do anything shady, and he knows what we're doing or where it's going, basically.
Would everybody on the multi-sig be KYC'd?
Ideally, yes, but I do understand that maybe in terms of the community member who they voted for, might not want to KYC in a sense. Then that might be a slight issue, because ideally we would want them to KYC with the audit company, not only to us, because obviously if we're talking about someone who's managing probably a lot of funds, so you definitely would want to choose a person, I would say, that is willing to go through the KYC process, in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But right off the bat, it's going to be the 3 founders, and you guys will all be KYC'd off the bat, right?
Yes, correct.
And would your project be able to survive if you or one of the core team members left, or God forbid something happened to them?
Definitely yes, because like I said, this is a very turnkey system. As long as my team exists on the back end, and as long as I would say Snorky doesn't hide any of his codes, in a sense, which most of it are public.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're committed to full transparency. Even if my business partner leaves, like I said, we basically sort of run the idea and the flow of the show. We give directions. The whole system is a very turnkey system. So it's once you actually know the secret sauce, I would say it's not the hardest to replicate. That's why I don't go really in deep in terms of how we do it, because it is doable on scale once you figure out what we do. It's not something that's magical. It's just about connecting the right dots and having the scar tissues to know from experience what works and does not work, I would say. So it will not be any issue if any of us decide to leave. None of us have any incentive to leave as well. And I guess that's the answer.
All right. And do you think your project would survive if the bear market continues longer?
So this definitely is an interesting point for everyone. We are in healthcare. The benefit is that regardless of the bear market or the bull market, we will still survive, because whether you are healthy or whether you are sick, you are going to need healthcare. And especially when you are sick, in that sense, you're going to need healthcare. It's something that you cannot avoid. In a sense, it's one of the core recession-proof businesses that are out there in terms of all everything else.
All right, so healthcare is a recession-proof industry, so good to know. Good for bear markets. And what do you think is the biggest risk to participants in KERC?
So I would say the biggest risk would be that if you were to sort of want to get out of KERC in an emergency state and you need to be able to liquidate your funds really quickly, I would say that would be the biggest risk to you. I'm going to be very upfront to say, look, like we discussed before earlier, the OTC market system is a very safe and stable system for everyone, and it's created for that reason to be sustainable and safe. But the downside to that is it's going to take some time for you to sort of like cash out on your asset and to liquidate your asset. It's not going to be a very quick process unless maybe you're at the right time and right place where someone is looking for that quick deal as well in terms of to hop on board. So I would say that would be like the most major risk that you're gonna face in a sense coming into our project.
Okay, so temporary illiquidity with through the OTC markets, probably the biggest risk people who are trying to get out quickly might face.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate the transparency and forthcomingness. That's I think that's a great straightforward answer. All right, now where do you see the project in 6 months to a year, 3 years, and 5 years?
So in 6 months, I believe that we will be able to acquire, if we raise successfully, which I believe we'll do, we'll be able to acquire near, I would say 70% we will deploy nearly 70% of the capital deployed, the capital raise, and we will be able to start scaling and start pushing out the participation rewards on a higher scale. And in a year's time, hopefully we can get to a point whereby we have fully deployed the capital and also fully optimized all the assets. So when the audits come in, we'll be looking at a very nice show and tell to say, look, this is how well we're doing. This is how well our assets are doing. This is what everything is going about. And we are able to basically showcase the performance that we have. And we are able to move forward into the next raise cycle. So that brings us to year 3 and maybe year 5 is definitely we do have a lot of ideas in our pipelines, but we're definitely not ready to release out into public yet. But in terms of that, there are definitely some juicy things that are coming if you stick around with us for sure, because we don't see this as just like, for example, 3 to 5 years. I would say maybe in a sense of like at least 8 to 9 years is a possibility as well, is how long we plan to run the whole roadmap. Because right now, in terms of our roadmap plan, I did release some info to Alex that we have a roadmap at least up to 5 years in terms of if there's anything we do need to exit or there's something that we could do in a sense. But this is not a project where we're going to go away overnight in a sense. I think as long as we continue to reward everyone in terms of participation wise, everyone will be happy, because in terms of the healthcare assets that we can acquire, it doesn't end in Southeast Asia. We definitely have our eyes sight on expansion within the South American side. That is definitely down the road, and definitely a few other continents as well.
Okay. Now, you mentioned kind of like a timeline, a potential like exits or future transitions. Would you put like a timeline or lifespan on this project and rewards for somebody? Like, is this going to last for my kids, my grandkids kind of deal? Or like, am I looking at like some really nice juicy rewards for X amount of years? What are we looking at here?
I would say until the point of the 5-year plan, we would definitely be still looking at a long-term plan, because I don't think no one would want us to sort of like change the whole system. As long as if we're paying good rewards, I think we should keep it stable. And if we can keep it stable for maybe even up to your kids level, because we can scale to a level where we are international and an institutional level, we can definitely incorporate way more things on that scale. If maybe, for example, we get to a point where we can rival the asset value of a Fortune 500 company and we can start moving up the ranks in that department, for sure, then we might need to restructure certain things down the road. But in this time moment, this is a long-term project plan. This is not a short-term thing that we're looking at. But in terms of if you're talking all the way into your grandkids, definitely I can't give you the answer for now.
I mean, like years 5 and 8, if there's some major restructuring going on, and we've, been reaping the rewards all that time, would there ever be like all right, like sayonara, I'm going to set this ship to sail and I got more than I expected out of this and I head off on my way kind of deal? Or would there be some consideration of like, you're a super early supporter of this and whatever we transition into next, we will try to make sure you're incorporated into it, or like sent a farewell package kind of deal or something like that? What do you think? I know that's far. I know that's far looking, but I want to paint like a whole picture here.
Yeah, for sure, no issue. I don't think I want to go on and release all that alpha yet. Okay. You stick around and you'll find out in terms of like what will happen and what will transpire. But I can definitely tell you that exciting things are coming as we scale. And if we scale well, it might come around quicker as well. But this is not, once again, this is not a short-term project in a sense whereby we're closing up in 3 years or 5 years. Where the goal is long and sustainable, and as long as we can, I think everyone will be happy with that. And before, obviously, we make any major decisions, we'll always come to the community and say, look, this is what's going to happen, or this is what we're looking at. What are your thoughts? And we maybe probably put it to a vote to let the community decide in terms of which direction they want this to go.
What if a behemoth comes along, a gigantic medical company, and they're like, we're going to buy you out for this awesome price? What happens then to us?
So definitely if a behemoth comes in and say, look, I want to buy your whole entire asset out for maybe 3 times the value, 5 times the value, I'll be silly to say no. I don't think any of our investors will say no as well, because basically what that means is that we'll just conceptualize the whole reward structure and redeploy it to everyone and say, okay, look, because we're getting bought out, it's a good price. We had a good run. I don't think you're going to complain with the additional ROI you're going to get in that sense. And that's how that might happen if we do get bought out. I don't think anyone would say no to that, to be honest.
No, and I think you and Snorky Pie both are decent guys. So I would have faith that you would do right by the DeFi participants here. And I know it's DeFi, so there are literally no strings attached kind of thing here. So a lot of it's on trust of the team and their character and values, right? So if you guys were to get a very generous offer by some behemoth at some point in the future, I'll ask you directly, would you make sure that all of the DeFi participants are looked after adequately in that situation?
Yes, for sure, definitely. I'm fully docs. You know where I live in a sense. I believe that if I harm the community, it's just gonna harm me and everyone else as well. I don't see the point in doing any of that. I think if it works well, it will only be a catalyst for me to create more projects with similar concepts down the road. And then now I'm saying, look, I've proven the track record. I've given everyone a fair share amount in a sense. I'm going to restart this on a different scale. And are you on board to join me for this crazy ride again? And I think that's the best kind of exit that I would probably want to look at, because personally, down to the bone, I'm a serial entrepreneur in a sense. I like building things. I cannot stop like building businesses and stuff like that. That's my passion, and that brings me joy, basically, in a sense. So I don't see the point in killing my career just for a few short bucks in that sense.
Awesome. So in that scenario, you would look out for all of your DeFi stakeholders here and make sure that they're looked after similarly as all of the official company stakeholders on the registered business side of things as well, right?
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. I like that. Thanks, man. And and if that were to happen, it would be cool to see how that pans out. Now I know you're doing future raises at some point in the future to further scale this thing. So, will the assets acquired from this fundraising round, will we only have exposure to the profits that those assets create, and will future fundraising events only have exposure to those future assets that those funds acquire? Or will there be some benefit that I'll receive as an early round one fundraising guy if I get in now for future fundraises in, the next 6 or 12 months or year or two? Will I have exposure to those future assets that are acquired from further fundraising rounds?
Yes, so there are plans in place to sort of create different staking pools that will reward the earlier people, in a sense where there will be sort of like a level of cap in a sense, because as of this time moment, we don't see the need to create such pools. So this is down the pipeline in a sense. Yeah. So to ensure that we reward the earlier stakers, we will cap sort of like the earlier pools to ensure that, look, you guys are going to get a bigger in terms of participation reward, because at the end of the day, everyone, no matter what raise I do, will get the same fixed 1.5%. It's just the participation reward. I could reward the earlier investors, I would say that's the best idea and that's the plan to do, because you came in at an earlier stage. So this is where the individualized pools will sort of come into play at the later stage.
Okay. All right. So you got some caps on these staking pools to make sure like they don't get out of control, but also like we can keep participating down the road through further fundraising events. And would those future fundraising events, would that be based on the same KERC token, or would it be deploying an entirely new token, or would any new KERC tokens be minted, or how would that work?
So it will solely be based on the KERC token that we have now. That's why we're starting with 500 million. There will be no more KERC tokens minted, no more KERC tokens minted or produced down the road. So that's why it creates a level of scarcity to own it at the end of the day. We believe that it will come to a point where these tokens will be highly valued, and in a sense of like it's equivalent to basically buying bonds. That's what we hope to scale it to a level whereby it's something that that as long as you hold that, you're getting a good return, you're getting a stable return, you don't have to worry about anything else.
So future KERC fundraising rounds, would those be sales basically of the treasury owned KERC tokens at a certain price?
Correct. That will be correct.
Awesome. All right. I think I got a good idea of everything I wanted to know about your business model here. And I love it, dude. I'll be honest. And as I always say, he didn't pay me to say I love it, by the way. That's my opinion. I charge for my time to do these essentially. But other than that, like I make these guys agree that I can say whatever I want, good or bad, whatever I think about their projects. And I really like this project. I like your business model. It's exciting for me to see a crossover of brick and mortar and real world business, especially like healthcare, into the DeFi space in such like a very direct way. It's once you wrap your head around it, it's super easy to understand and just be like, okay, I can have exposure to these guys just like acquiring and like transforming and fixing up these undervalued healthcare facilities and making them profitable. And they have a track record of doing it with multiple business models already. And I can have exposure to that through DeFi, which I like and I'm comfortable with. And you guys are doxed and out there and doing the KYC. You're going through all the proper processes with that and the audits and multi-sigs. And you're going to do in-person audits and on-site visits and public financial reports for the community every month. You guys have really thought these things through. And John, you really knew your answers to my business and finance questions, which is, I find very impressive, because a lot of times that's some of us DeFi bros out here might be lacking in those areas, and you're not. You can obviously tell you're very experienced in the business and accounting world, which I appreciate, especially when you're going to be the guy kind of running this ship with a large portfolio. So hey, I that's all I had to say. I will try to chuck something into this private sale if I can. And just full transparency, everybody listening, I am kind of sold on this business model. I'm not going to go all in. I don't go all in on anything, but I would like some exposure to this in my portfolio. So I think that's super cool. John, do you have anything else you want to tell the audience today?
I would say just hop in if you have any other questions. Before that, thank you, Alex, for the great AMA in a sense. I think we ran through another marathon here. But I had a great time. I loved it in a sense. We had great conversations. I wish we could release the whole amount of hours we spent talking. We're just having a bunch of fun and just talking here. He's a great guy. But
thanks, man.
If you have any other questions of anything, just hop in our Discords. I'm always there to answer questions. I don't shy away. I don't hide away from people. I believe in conversing, and the best way to do that is just to speak in a sense, because our project is not something that it's easily understood in that sense within like the next 10 minutes in that sense. So definitely, like, you probably have a lot of questions, and we're going to try to see how we can condense all of that as well in the Discord and within the community. So come on by, hop on, and just start a conversation. And if you like us, put your dollar and vote for us.
Awesome. So you guys, you can find them at their Discord server. I will put the link in the description and the comments. Also, they have a sale going on, the private sale currently with through the DHedge community, and it's dhedge.kerc.io, and DHedge is spelled DEHEDGE.KERC.io. And you guys have a private sale going on for the next 2 weeks till middle of June. And then after that, the pre-sale starts, and KERC.io is your website, and that should be fully up and running at that point. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So once pre-sale starts and all that, KERC.io is where you will be able to find them. Also, go to the Discord. Do you guys have a custom Discord URL yet?
Yes and no, because we have a few boosting lacking. I think we just like a few more boosts. So if you could come in and boost us, we can get a custom Discord link.
There you go.
We do have permanent links on that. So it's being transparent.
Well, if you guys really like this project, go boost their Discord server and help them get discord.gg/KERC URL. And I will put the links to the Discord here and also to the private sale. And also, if you have any questions for me about this, join me in my Discord, discord.gg/YaBonks, YaBonks, discord.gg/YaBonks. I'm in there every day. Large community, awesome people. I will have a channel in there for KERC. Any questions you have, any materials that I post about it, John will be in there, and there will be a channel in there for you guys. So, yeah, join our Discord communities, check it out, and yeah, thank you everybody for watching. If you made it to this point in the video and you watched the whole thing, you probably know more about John's business model and business plan here than 99.9% of the people out there. So good for you if you made it this far. And be sure to share it with your friends and like the video and all that stuff. So thanks for your time and attention, everybody. I will catch you on the next one. See you later.